Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. I'm Mike Graham. As you can see, there's a sign behind me that says so, in case you're in any doubt. We got it back on Friday, I'm delighted to say, and it's still working. So well done, Pooch. He's been in here all weekend, cleaning up, sorting it all out, making sure the clocks are at the right time. And so here we are. Welcome to the start of another week. It's Monday. Apparently now we are within range of Iranian missiles. So I'm not quite sure whether we should do any other stories, but Emma Wolf is here. Very good morning to you, Emma. It's hard to take this, isn't it? You know, we're sitting here wondering what's going to happen next. You know, when you feel like you're actually entering end times and you think, what's the point anymore? I'm not gonna, if I see a red light, I'm not saying anyone should go through a red light. Well, you are a cyclist though, so you go through anyway, right? But I mean, are we actually going to bother? Are we going to pay our taxes? Are we going to think about the future? Are we just going to live as though there's no tomorrow? Yeah. Well, imagine this, right? When I get to July, I'm going to supposedly give a big chunk of money to HMRC, which is going to be in lieu of what's going to happen next year. Yeah. I'm like you. Why would I? Yeah, unfortunately, I just did at the end of January. Well, I did as well. Yeah. Yeah, but I'd have to then do it again in the middle of July. Oh, well, you must earn I do it every 6 months. Well, that's what happens when you earn 10 times what everyone else earns. Well, yeah. But seriously, what is going to happen? Each day you wake up, and it's not just the government and the utter sheer incompetence and ineptitude of this government. And it's the world situation. Yeah. And I'm not one of those people that goes, oh, we're on the brink of World War III. But we might well be. No, I haven't felt like that, I must say. But this weekend, I was thinking to myself, when we started hearing about, threats being ramped up, when you hear about the Straits of Hormuz, when Donald Trump's talking about obliterating Iran's, power facilities and power stations and all of that, they're talking about retaliating. And then particularly, and I think the thing for a lot of people, was when we found out that the government had concealed the fact that Diego Garcia was fired upon from 4,000 kilometres away by the Iranians, who apparently didn't have a missile that could go that far, but now apparently it turns out they were lying, believe it or not. So now they can hit Europe. They were lying, exactly. But the fact that we didn't know about it, the fact that the government, and it only came out, Nigel Farage pointed this out, it only came out because it was in the media. The government didn't seem to be planning to tell us. Well, look at the front page. Even that same day, 2 days later, Yvette Cooper was barefaced lying on television, talking about, we're going to pursue we're defensive operations, defensive action, but not offensive. So we weren't actually told about it. No, because they don't understand the meaning of either of those words. On the front page of the Daily Mail today, I think pretty much sums it up well. Yeah. Why did the Prime Minister keep the public in the dark for 30 hours after Chagos strike? And this is a piece written by Kemi Badenoch in the Mail yesterday. She accused the Prime Minister of overseeing a culture of cover-ups, and she urged the government to explain why it didn't inform the public earlier. It's outrageous, isn't it? Yeah, and she said this great thing about, exactly the same as the situation with Peter Mandelson. Yeah. Starmer's first instinct is to cover up the truth. Yes. And that is that's what this all comes down to. I don't mind if we are entering end times, but I would quite like to know. Yeah. I do think that, for ourselves and for our families and for our own plans, it would be nice to know what the situation is. Even if we disagree with what Starmer, we all do, but he disagrees with what he's doing because he keeps changing his mind. He doesn't know what he's doing. No. It's such a worrying situation. I know. And here's the tally of what happened over the weekend, for those of you who are living under a rock, is that the government finally admitted missiles had been fired at Diego Garcia more than 30 hours after the attempted strike, and only after it had been confirmed by US officials. Steve Reed was out doing the rounds yesterday. He's the Housing and Communities Secretary now. And I thought to myself, he hasn't built a single house. This is what we really need, is a bloke who used to run Lambeth Council, which went into bankruptcy and which couldn't even organise your bin collection, telling you about how he's defending Britain from terrorism. It's such a joke. Yeah. And actually, there were the 2 missile strikes for people who were living under a rock. Yes. One of which, Mike, was intercepted by a US warship. So they basically saved us. Right. Well, I know it's a joint British-American base. Yeah. But how would you feel if you were one of those British troops, knowing that actually the British government didn't consider that important enough to defend? No. That's what they're saying. Yeah, I know. They said. So the US came in and bailed us out. Yes. And the other missile failed. Yeah. Missiles do fail a lot. But if Iran start launching them over London or over the UK, then there's going to be all hell. The other thing is that they said Iran doesn't have anything that can go further than 2,000 kilometres. And it turns out that's not true. And why? Because the Iranians told a lie about it.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
That's the
It's
nature of
madness,
your
isn't it?
enemy.
Yes.
There's been a list, if you look in the papers, there's a list of all the different missiles they've got and how far they can go and what range there is.
Yeah.
And many of them are well over 2,000 kilometres.
I know, it's incredible. Well, let's have a look at Steve Reed, because Steve Reed basically was on yesterday with Laura Kunsberg and Trevor Phillips and everybody else, at GB News as well, talking about exactly what he knows about the defence of the realm. Have a look at this.
Borrowing last month was, government borrowing was up at over £14 billion. That's the second highest for the month of February since records began in 1993. The only other time it's been that high is during the pandemic. We know that pretty much certainly there will be no interest rate cuts this year. Your economic plans are now dust, aren't they?
No, absolutely not, Trevor. What we're seeing here is shocks happening in other parts of the world that have an impact here at home on the United Kingdom. Now, the fact that we have a much more stable economy now than the chaos we had with the Tories and the mini budget and Liz Truss means that we are in a better position to weather those storms when they come in.
What you mean is flat, no growth.
A stable economy. We've had 6 interest rates cuts in a row. I mean, people may not realise this, but from April, just a couple of weeks' time, people will see an average cut in their energy bills of £120 a year. That's despite everything that's going on in the Middle East. And it's happening because of the choices this government took to create a more stable basis for our economy. Now, the UK government can't stop shocks that may happen elsewhere in the world. We can make sure we're better positioned to weather those shocks when they come in. And that's exactly what we're seeing with the crisis in the Middle East.
See, the trouble is he's now using sort of parliamentary, Labour type language to kind of slither around really, really serious economic and sort of, defence related issues. And then we'll get there's another clip where he talks about how, there's no evidence to suggest that the Iranians could fire a missile that could hit Western Europe. Well, why would we take his word for it?
Exactly.
I
mean, I've heard military experts agreeing and disagreeing on this. That we do have we're not completely defenceless.
Right.
And others saying actually we would be really in big trouble.
Well, he's talking about how we somehow managed to defend the missile strike on Chagos Islands, but it was nothing to do with Britain.
It was nothing to do with us.
And also HMS Dragon, by the way, there's another part.
An update.
Which still, do you remember last week? I think it was this time last week. I said over the weekend I was hearing that it was actually it dropped anchor just off the coast of Cornwall. Well, it still hasn't got to Cyprus.
Absolutely.
So nobody knows where it is, right? And it sounds to me like they're still refitting it, except they're refitting it on the high seas.
This didn't need to be like this. Starmer didn't need to handle this so badly from the beginning.
No.
What if he'd come out calmly and confidently and informed everybody of the situation and said, we stand with our allies? And what if he'd actually, put some money behind it?
Which he's doing anyway now. They're now using British
he has to
bases.
turn everything. Yeah, they are, exactly. They're using British bases anyway. I think what's really worrying now is Trump has issued this ultimatum. What happens next? We know it was 48 hours from Friday.
Yeah.
He said if Iran doesn't fully open without threat the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours from this exact point in time, the United States of America will hit and obliterate their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first. So, and Iran have shown absolutely no signs of, caving in.
Right.
So now what?
Yeah, exactly. So now there's this
what happens
ultimatum.
When it's 48 hours
Yeah,
from
exactly. I think it's 11:45 p.m. tonight. I think that's our time rather than
oh my God.
USA time. And, already the Iranians have said, well, we'll retaliate and they'll start firing missiles at Israel. And the whole thing is a complete and utter mess. And it feels as though, they're having a Cobra meeting hilariously this morning in Downing Street. To say what exactly? Because Britain is in no position to do anything.
We are in
absolute... to de-escalate the situation. Well, how's that going, exactly?
But seriously, if we can't... So, did you say we're still stuck in just off Cornwall?
Well, I don't know where it is.
The Strait of Cornwall.
It might be. All I know is it's certainly not in Cyprus yet. This is week 3.
So how on earth are we going to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, we're not.
We're not, are we?
No. And HMS Dragon isn't going to be of any use to anybody, man or beast. And the Iranians have also said they're going to charge every ship that goes through the Straits of Hormuz, I think £1.5 million a go. So that'll be the toll. And
we are going to start seeing already. Have you seen this thing about food prices are going to go skyrocketing again because of Iran?
Yeah.
The same way that they went skyrocketing for every other situation.
Well, I had a situation yesterday.
And what about petrol?
Petrol, I bought petrol this morning, funnily enough, just because I always stop at a petrol station every morning. And I noticed that I didn't really have that much petrol. So I thought instead of just buying the papers today, I'll put some petrol in. And it was 150.9 for just regular unleaded petrol, which is about 10p more than it was about a week ago. So
is that normal? Because
it could go higher.
Fluctuate.
Pooch was
but
saying
10p in a week, is that normal?
10p in a week's quite a lot.
Okay.
For a lot of people, because they'll be paying that'll be another sort of 10 quid.
Yeah.
So like everything else is edging up and up and up.
Yeah.
I went into a co-op yesterday, my local co-op, right? Because I thought I'd make myself some dinner. And I didn't know what to make. I thought I'll be inspired by something that I see.
Not in a co-op.
No, it was like shopping in sort of, post 1940s Berlin. There was nothing there. They literally had. I ended up buying a joint of meat which was on sale because it was, near its sell-by date,
frozen and defrosted a few times.
But that was 13 quid, right, for a sort of, something I made a pot roast out of. They had no carrots.
Thing about co-op, they have no fresh produce at all.
I mean,
they
they've
have
got some.
But a pathetic selection of, kind of, not fresh,
they had
not
things you don't want. Like they had bags and bags of sprouts. I'm not buying sprouts. Sorry, it's not Christmas.
But that's what I mean.
Right?
They're not big, luscious sprouts or big, large, fresh grapes.
No.
You get these sort of really small little
and they have
things
bags
that look
and
like...
bags of. I know you're a vegetarian, but they're bags and bags of that kale stuff.
No.
It's just like eating carpet to me.
Yeah, no.
You might as well literally just put some carpet in a pot.
No, I don't
and boil it and eat it.
Kale. The only good vegetables are broccoli and carrots and sprouts are good.
Didn't have any broccoli either.
No.
But when you make a pot roast, normally it's celery, carrots, possibly, but I've got garlic, I've got onions. But yeah, I found myself standing there going, how is this possible? How is this, 2026, a supermarket, Sunday late afternoon, and they haven't got anything? And also, where the pot roast came in a great big sort of plastic box, which was sealed. Yeah. So I had to take it to the shop front. I couldn't do it myself. So they could open it for me. It's ridiculous.
It's like...
And then over there's the wine rack, but that's all locked up.
Yeah,
you have to ring a bell.
In our local co-op, you have to press a bell to ask someone to come and unlock the fridge so you can look at the alcohol. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, it really
absolutely
is.
insane. Anyway, I did make it, and it turned out quite well. So in the end, it was we all lived happily ever after. We should mention the breaking news story that we're all looking at this morning. It happened overnight in North London. Police treating an arson attack on 4 ambulances belonging to the Jewish volunteer service Hatzalah as a hate crime. They say they've launched an investigation after the ambulances belonging to the Jewish Community Ambulance Service were set on fire in Golders Green at about 1:45 this morning. 3 suspects being sought who were caught on CCTV cameras.
Well, let's hope the police take, fair and just action on this.
Well, they'll probably be a bit slow, won't they? Because it's, anti-Semitic, so...
Of course, exactly, that's what I'm saying. And meanwhile, look at this. We've got this channel deal ending with France, and we've spent 475 million.
Yeah. Is there something wrong?
Pounds.
Hey?
Sorry, no.
No?
Pooch started talking to himself.
Sorry, okay. 475
He just went, oh, and I thought, what, have we got off air or something?
I'm trying to download something.
This is a funny
Can I
thing.
finish my sentence?
Sorry, I'm sorry. My apologies.
No, it's fine.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
475 million pounds over the last 3 years. I'm just wondering, I'm looking at these men and they look very frightening to me.
Yes.
I don't necessarily want people coming into the country undocumented in this way.
And where are they going?
They're coming into this country and I am wondering, migrants began their attempt to cross yesterday from France as French police looked on. So they're leaving France like this and I'm wondering what on earth we got for 475 million pounds.
Well, nothing.
Nothing.
No.
And it's the end of that deal. So now we're back where we started.
And there's talks on the front, page 2 of The Sun, talks to renew Britain's expensive migration deal with France are going down to the wire before it basically expires at the end of this month. And so they'll no doubt, because they're cleverer than we are, the French, they'll say, we need more money.
But
another 500 million, please.
This thing about talks are going down to the wire, for what?
I know.
To renew what?
I know.
They haven't been doing anything. I remember in your previous live, on a previous show, on a previous channel, Shabana Mahmood came in and she was all shiny and she started issuing these 5-minute kind of clips where she would stride around the Home Office and say, I'm taking action. Yeah. And we thought for a minute, we're like, oh, wow, she's going to take action.
It's always the same, isn't it? It's always the same. Every single Home Secretary we've ever had, and including the Tories, including Priti Patel, including Suella Braverman, they all come in and everybody goes, the good thing about these people is that they know the law and they know the Home Office, and so they're going to absolutely crack the whip. And all of them get stymied by the same trench that they fall into. As soon as you enter the Home Office, you just go down into the depths of the bowels of the earth and never to be seen again. She's on the front page of the Telegraph today, right, Shabana Mahmood, saying, we're going to send migrants back before they have a chance to appeal. No, you're not. That's not going to happen.
1 in, 1 out, right? turned into hundreds in and one out.
Yeah.
And then when
the one outs come back.
Yeah, they come back. Then we pay them. Then they leave. Then they go back there on holiday. Then they come back. It's an absolute joke. Wasn't there something called Five Eyes that she had all these drones I just remember these videos she was making at our expense.
I know.
And she had these drones buzzing around, I don't know, buzzing around the Home Office or Whitehall or the coastline or somewhere. And that was going to be the solution.
I know.
And actually, what we saw was the same migrants coming in and out with that. Do you remember the guys with the blue plastic bags?
Yep. Those same three. This from Shona, who says, I could swim to Cyprus quicker. That's a super chat. You probably could. Did you say you wanted to play the migrant clip?
I've got the Steve Reed clip.
Oh, the Steve Reed clip. Is this on McSweeney?
Yeah.
All right.
This is on the missiles.
Oh, missiles, sorry. Here's Steve Reed, once again, talking out of his backside about what's going on with the defence of the realm. Check it out.
This is an on-the-record quote from the Israeli Defense Forces. Our allies, the Iranian terrorist regime, poses a global threat with missiles that can reach London, Paris or Berlin. Is that true?
There is no specific assessment that the Iranians are targeting the UK, or even could if they wanted to. We have the finest military in the world. We are perfectly capable of protecting this country and keeping this country safe, whether it's here at home or whether it's our assets and nationals across the region. Well, you'd need to speak to the Israelis. You know, whatever people might say, the UK is not going to be dragged into this war, but we will take appropriate, collective, defensive action to keep our nationals and our interests safe.
But Secretary of State, everyone watching this morning will want to know, are you saying that it is not true that Iran could hit European capitals, Paris, Berlin, London?
I'm not aware of any assessment at all that they are even trying to target Europe, let alone that they could if they tried. But even if they did, we have the necessary military capability to defend this country, and defending the British national interest is precisely why we're taking part in collective defensive action across the Middle East. But whatever people might say, whatever speculation there might be, this country will not be dragged into this war.
Why does he keep saying this country will not be dragged into this war? It's already in the war, right? They fired missiles at Diego Garcia, which is a British base. They fired drones at Cyprus, as a British base. There's a ship supposedly on its way to Cyprus, to defend us in the war theatre.
Does he understand this is a global situation?
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Right.
We don't have a choice right now.
Yeah.
We need to deal with it. And also, why are we being insulted to have the housing and communities sector, whatever his name is,
where's Healy?
being rolled out? Why is he talking about this situation?
I presume
Where
they
is
don't
our
trust
defence
Healy.
secretary? Where is our home secretary?
Yeah.
Where is our foreign secretary?
Yeah.
Why are they not talking to the media?
Yeah,
Why
because
are we
they're
not
even-
hearing from the Prime Minister?
Yeah.
Because he's basically cowering behind the sofa somewhere.
Maybe they're all refusing to do it because they can't. They know
Because
they
they
can't.
don't know.
Yeah, they can't now
Don't
go
know
on
what
to a television station and actually stand over what Starmer is
And
threatening
they can't
to do.
answer the questions.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
Exactly right. And also, how dare he sit there and say we're perfectly capable of defending ourselves here? We can't defend people from coming on dinghies. How are you going to defend people firing missiles at you? You know? It's absolutely ridiculous.
It really is. It's a very, very alarming situation.
Totally mad. Anyway, the other big story, of course, and we'll illustrate it with a poll this morning. This is our poll for today, because Morgan McSweeney, it turns out, has said that he can't, unfortunately, show up with his phone and all the WhatsApp messages that need to be looked at and investigated by the authorities as a result of Peter Mandelson's problems and maybe even Prince Andrew's as well. He says he's lost his phone, right? This is a guy who's chief of staff inside of Downing Street. As somebody said, if you lose your phone, you can recover everything from the cloud. You can actually get your WhatsApp messages unless you've erased them, right? So does he think my head zips up the back, as we say?
He's absolutely taking the mickey.
Yeah.
Right? The minute, it's like getting a new phone. I recently got a new phone.
Yeah.
The guy in the phone store downloaded all my WhatsApps, and it took him about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
He just plugged something in and recovered all the WhatsApps.
Yeah, because it's all in the cloud.
WhatsApps are in a cloud somewhere.
Yeah.
They're not on your phone.
Exactly.
So he's claiming that his phone was stolen?
He's claiming that his phone was stolen or he's lost it, one of the two. I think he said it was stolen.
I think he said it was stolen because it was reported to the police last year.
Right.
As someone else pointed out.
Do you think it was Lou Haig that reported it to police? You know,
Yeah,
the woman who
she's the
keeps
one who-
reporting
yeah.
stolen phones that weren't stolen.
Yeah.
Can you read about the podcast?
The poll?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the poll is this. Where is Morgan McSweeney's phone? 1, up Mandelson's rear end, in his other coat, at the bottom of the sea, as per the Vardy case, right? Or in Lord Ali's penthouse. So far, most of you think it's up Mandelson's rear end. Sorry about that this time of the morning, but we thought it was quite funny.
Well, but that's the other point. If these are the messages pertaining to Mandelson, then they're not only on McSweeney's phone, they're on Mandelson's phone.
Yes.
So let's have the side, let's have both sides.
Exactly right.
The problem is, and there was good analysis in the Sunday papers on this, the problem is disappearing messages. So it's you can't legally cover up and refuse to pass over messages if they're demanded by the government. But if they are on disappearing messages, those messages are gone.
Yes.
That's
because
the problem.
that is
a lot of people have that setting now.
Yes, I've noticed that.
I don't trust people who do that. When
I don't.
When friends start sending me messages and it says disappearing messages, I turn it off and I think, firstly, who do you think you are?
Right.
That you're that important, that your communication with me needs to disappear, as though I'm going to run to the media with your silly messages.
Also,
secondly, what do you cover?
Yeah, exactly. But also, as we all know, emails, for example, I was told this many years ago when emails were first sort of a thing.
You're a bit of an expert on this now, aren't you?
I am a bit, yeah, because I had to, as a result of what happened to me, I had to find out an awful lot more about, messages and security than I ever knew. Yeah. But somebody told me once that if you send an email, it never disappears, right? It's always somewhere, right? Whether it's in a vault in Switzerland, whether it's on a hard drive in India, wherever it is, there's always somewhere you can get it. And the same goes for WhatsApp messages.
And there's always a recipient, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think I don't even know, but I would imagine if you are one of those people that has disappearing messages on WhatsApp, they'll be somewhere.
They should be somewhere. What's really shocking is allegedly Morgan McSweeney was writing to Peter Mandelson and discussing the issue on his personal email addresses.
Yes.
Only 31 documents have been handed over so far from the official, I think, Morgan McSweeney email government account or whatever it is. Only 31.
Yeah.
So this investigation is going nowhere. Why don't they go in there and just get the lot?
Well, what they need to say
all the
to
laptops,
McSweeney
all
is,
the phones, hand them over.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to get you a new phone, right? You're going to log into your iCloud and you're going to download all the stuff from the iCloud while we watch you doing it. How about that? And then see how that goes.
Exactly.
Because this is a matter of national security. It's a matter of, government corruption, as far as I'm concerned. So I believe the police have the right to do that. And so they should. I mean, the company, for example, that I use to do a forensic check on my own phone work with the police all the time. And those guys said to me, we can tell from a phone account exactly where the person has even been. Yeah. Forget about the messages they've sent. We can tell where they were when they sent the message. We can tell when they went from here to there and exactly who they were messaging from over there. Amazing. They can see everything.
They really can.
So the idea that this bozo thinks, I'll just tell them I've lost my phone, like the dog ate my homework. Yeah. All right, let's have Steve read on this and see if he's got any great pearls of wisdom for us.
To be doing. The Sun is reporting that Morgan McSweeney's phone has disappeared with many of his messages to Lord Mandelson on it, and no backup exists. Well, you do understand why many people will find that very convenient.
Well, as I understand it, that was a theft that was reported months before the whole Mandelson situation even began.
No backup. Prime Minister's Chief of Staff has no backup of his messages.
Well, I don't know what he does or doesn't have in terms of
doesn't seem ideal, does it?
But his phone was stolen, and he reported it at the time, and it was well in advance of anything happening around the Mandelson situation.
I remember when Boris Johnson's phone, all the WhatsApp mysteriously disappeared on that. I remember Labour shadow ministers being pretty incredulous.
Yes, and that happened after he had been required to provide it. Morgan reported the theft of his phone months, I think it was maybe even over a year before the whole situation arose. So there's no comparison.
So what about the messages he may have sent since the phone was stolen? If it was stolen more than a year ago before we knew about the Mandelson scandal, what about his current phone then? Why have we not seen the messages from that?
The fact is, if the government wanted this information from you or I, we would have to hand over all our devices, all our passwords, and they would get that information that they wanted.
In a criminal investigation, that's what happens. And that's what this is. This is a criminal investigation.
Absolutely. And if, the government need to grow some balls on this, I'm afraid, and absolutely
also stop treating people like they're idiots.
Like idiots.
Nobody believes the story, right?
Because we all know that, as you say, if things are sent, if they exist, photos, all of that stuff, if you try and delete it, there's a digital footprint.
Of course there is.
You can see it.
Of course there is, which is why when I did my forensic search of my phone to provide to the people who wanted it...
And you're a private individual working for a private company, and you were, you had to go through all of that.
But my search showed that there was nothing there, right? And apparently that wasn't good enough.
This is a good one.
So that's another story. It has a find my phone function. Just use it, says Tony. Yeah, exactly. Well, my phone was stolen, right?
Find the phone.
I knew exactly where it was. The police weren't interested because, as far as they were concerned, we can't, I think I've probably told you the story before. This guy stole it. He was on a moped, took off down the road. Police officer across the street in a van said, I'm terribly sorry, what's happened? I said, yeah, well, aren't you going to chase him? Oh, no, I can't do that.
Can't do that.
And then I said, well, can you at least take a report for me? No, can't do that. Morning all. Emma is fantastic, says Sean. I couldn't agree more. So I then had a Find My iPhone on my iPad when I got home, and I could see where it was. And I told the cops, that's where it is. Why don't you go? No, well, you can't go down there. And I could see the guy was driving around with it. He took it over into Whitechapel, took it down to Goldsmith College, tried to sell it. I mean, I could literally track the guy and they wouldn't go anywhere near it.
This is insane. We need a campaign. Find McSweeney's phone.
Find McSweeney's phone,
Let's just go and find the phone. Does he... So let's just roll back. He's actually saying that the WhatsApp messages are only on that phone.
Yeah.
They're not anywhere else.
No.
It's so ridiculous.
There's no backup, right? Even though, as quite rightly was pointed out...
But they don't exist on the phone. They exist somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's how,
Yeah, but who doesn't have a backup on their phone?
I know.
Unless it's a burner phone. Right, in which case I think we need to know why the chief of the chief of staff of the government, all right, in 10 Downing Street, the right-hand man, the man who's been credited with getting Keir Starmer elected, the man who knows all the secrets of the Labour Party, who knows everything about Lord Ali, who knows all about all the other scandals, he's got a phone with no backup on it and nobody knows why.
This is ridiculous. Seriously? Also, government phones, all government, this is another problem, is that they're all conducting their business on private accounts, private email addresses.
Right.
So fine, let's have all his private emails and private messages then.
Yeah. I mean, exactly right. It's absolutely insane
or
that we're supposed to believe all this.
Sorry, or government security is really, really just completely, utterly weak, and we have no security at all.
Well, going all the way back to 2009, when apparently Mandelson was not only selling secrets out of Downing Street to Jeffrey Epstein, but he was importing Xanax and Botox illegally. Through the side letterbox.
Allegedly. Okay, he wasn't importing Botox, but
we don't know, though. I don't know what he was
discussing
doing.
all sorts of medications and drugs with a convicted paedophile.
Yeah.
And half of our royal family seem to have been in on the secret as well. I mean, the state of this country.
Maybe we do need some kind of, reset of some kind in this country.
We do.
To get a government that knows what it's doing, with a defensive kind of capability, which actually can stop people coming here who are not wanted and who are not legally allowed to come here. Maybe we can do that.
And we are
Here's
bankrupt.
one from Jude. I can read my WhatsApp messages on my iMac.
Well, that's what I do here.
Yeah, exactly. How is Morgan McSweeney the only guy who doesn't know how to use WhatsApp?
That's the other thing.
Right?
I've had a phone stolen, and then I could get my messages on my computer for a bit until I got another phone.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, you're absolutely right.
It's insane.
This is madness.
It really is.
And the government is bankrupt.
Yeah.
I genuinely think we've reached a point where we need not just a reset, but maybe 6 months off government.
Yeah.
Where we just don't have. Didn't Belgium have about a couple of years?
Well,
Who was it? Was it
Northern
Belgium?
Ireland has done it, right?
Yeah.
They managed to have no storm.
That's not going great, but
No, but I mean, actually, it was better run when they had no government.
They had
for,
no
for
government
quite a long
at all.
time.
And they were all paid all the time.
And
It was
nobody-
brilliant.
yeah,
they
nobody
were all being
cared.
paid.
Yeah.
I mean, they did care quite a lot. But I actually think 6 months without any kind of government at all would be a better thing.
Sorry. Just read this from Avina, who says, Mike, I hope McSweeney was considerate enough to enable the phone's vibrate function, considering where we think it now resides. I mean, it's no laughing matter. Shocking state of affairs, though, but very clever. I think Hillary has the phone. Yeah, you never know. Does anyone remember Robin's Nest, says Ian? Yeah, I do. Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, it's just a mess. The whole thing is a mess, right? A couple of other stories we've got to talk about, because this
and the Prime Minister is running scared. He's not answering any of these questions on Mandelson, on Iran, on anything.
No.
He's not answering questions.
I know, all he does, love the fact that Miss Wolf's son is called Ludo. When I gave my son that name 33 years ago, it was just Ludovic Kennedy, and people poo-pooed my choice of name.
Ludo is...
The Mike Graham Show is smashing it all over the airwaves.
Ludovic Kennedy was one of those people who lived in a time when people actually trusted the news.
Human rights.
And you actually trusted the people who brought you the news.
What a brilliant man.
Which gives you a nice segue into Hugh Edwards, our friend formerly at the BBC, who's apparently upset that Channel 5 have done a drama on his downfall, right? You won't believe this. This is really this will take your breath away, right? He's actually complained In a statement issued exclusively to the Daily Mail about this thing called The Downfall of Hugh Edwards, starring Martin Clunes, that airs tomorrow night at 9 p.m, they made no attempt to check with me, says Hugh, the truth or any aspect of their narrative before going ahead with the production. They belatedly asked for a response after the drama had been made, while reserving the right to edit any such response. They also refused to disclose whether any of those making allegations had been paid for their contributions. I mean, is he insane? Does he actually think that anyone believes a word that comes out of his mouth? This is a man who sent pictures of his backside to people while he was reading the news. I'm sorry, Hugh. The headline says self-pitying and deluded.
Why do actors take on these roles anyway? Why is Martin Clunes playing Hugh Edwards? Oh yeah, for money. I know. It just really, if I was an actor, I would have a bit more self-respect than to play a convicted paedophile.
Yeah, I suppose so. But I mean, he would say it's all part of my art, wouldn't he?
I know. I just
it's
don't
like
like
Kate
this kind of
Winslet.
art.
You know, why are you taking your clothes off in every film you've ever been in? Oh, because it's all about my art. I like to express myself.
But then on the other hand, they're telling us not to objectify ourselves and all of that. It's absolute nonsense.
Yeah, I only take my clothes off when it's actually, part of the role. No, you take your clothes off in every film you've ever been in.
Of course you do.
Right?
And then you get paid more.
A promotional summary of the programme reads thus. The drama explores the story of how a vulnerable 17-year-old was groomed by one of the most powerful figures in television. The series explores the newsreader's double life as it spirals out of control, leading him to make the greatest announcement of his career, his total exit from public life. Except he hasn't exited public life.
He hasn't exited from public life. How about he pays back all those hundreds of thousands of pounds, and then we can listen to his little whining statement, for goodness sake.
And then, also he sort of forgoes his pension, which we were all paying for, by the way.
Absolutely shocking.
The other one, which is slightly more serious, obviously, because it involves the dreaded Ian Huntley, who is entitled, apparently, to a taxpayer-funded funeral because he was in His Majesty's prison system. It's a £3,000 taxpayer-funded funeral. He'll have a basic cremation. There will be no service, no mourners, and no headstone, which I think is good. And his ashes will be scattered by his family at a secret location.
Well, one of his daughters said, flush his ashes down the lavatory, so I can't imagine it's going to be much of a ceremony.
No. But
I mean,
I think it's just, it's
of course, the cremation
awful.
Company have to charge to do the
I guess. I mean, I suppose it's one of those difficult situations because I don't know what you would do if it wasn't paid for. It just feels wrong that the taxpayer's paying for it. Should there not be some kind of?
I'm more worried. I'm more annoyed about the fact that we've got all hundreds, thousands of foreign criminals in our jails for years at a time, and we're paying for them. Just deport them. Literally, just deport them.
Yeah. Well, where's Shabana Mahmood when you need her? I mean, that's what
we don't need her. We don't need any of them.
Mike,
yeah.
About Substack.
Any videos of Ziggy today? Yeah, yes, actually, press 1 if you want to see a Ziggy video. Yeah, actually, I did a thing at the weekend called Ask Mike, which is on the Substack. And so if you're on Substack, if you're a subscriber, paid subscriber to Substack, you'll see it every single Sunday, where basically people send me questions, which I answer, and Ziggy's actually in the video. But I don't know if we can play it. Can we play a bit of it? We might do it later. Yeah, we'll tell you how to get to it anyway. Final story of the day, Emma.
So wait. Ask Mike, is it just questions about general things, or is it about Ziggy, or is it about...
Pretty much anything.
Personal questions?
Well, it wasn't too personal. I mean, I had the first... I think I selected
Is it
the
like
first
a live chat?
5. No, it's just recorded of me reading out the question and answering. I think the first one was about why is it that, people don't vote? Can you encourage more people to vote? Another one was, why do you think Lindsay Hoyle's so useless at, asking Keir Starmer to answer questions, that kind of thing. And then somebody said, what's the who would be your dream guest if you could get anybody on? So it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I dare say there might be more personal questions that come in. I don't know. Some of which I will answer, some of which I won't. But Ziggy's in the frame, and he sits there, and I pat his head at the end. It's very nice. And we didn't even have to bribe him. He was just quite happy to sit there. I think he quite likes the camera.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And you can even send him questions if you want. He'll try and answer them. Although I said he's not very clever, Ziggy. He doesn't know much.
Bit dim.
Yeah, he's a Labrador. He knows about food. Yeah. He knows about running and swimming. He doesn't like swimming. Sticks he likes, yeah. You can ask about that. So there's that.
That's so sweet.
Final one, we've got to talk about Meghan. I'm afraid. She's going to Australia.
Yeah.
She has apparently...
Right, what is this intimate women's gala, the bit that she's doing? So there's part of this whole junket that she's doing. She and the prince have both got a grift over in Australia.
Yeah.
Because California's getting a bit too hot for them. Sorry, I completely interrupted you. Were in the middle of your
Meghan. I'm just looking for the story, because basically she's going down, but she's apparently trademarked her As Ever brand before she gets there in the hopes that she can make a load of money. It says the Australian government's intellectual property office has been registered under the Fancy show that Meghan's trademark was accepted in June last year.
I mean, literally the grift never stops with
No.
Meghan Markle. So they're off to... Harry is going to do some, Harry's going to do one of his conferences, and he'll get, a couple of £100,000 talking about mental health in the workplace. He's never been in it. He's never been in a workplace.
No, he never has.
And frankly, his mental health is off the charts.
Well, maybe she should stop smoking so much marijuana, right?
And rage and resentment towards his family and his childhood and his position as being the heir. Anyway, these two are off to Australia. She's going to be doing like a wellness thing at a wellness retreat, an intimate women's gala. You pay about $3,000. You get a photo with Meghan at some big table with a million other people.
Yeah.
You get a photo with Meghan, and then you get the opportunity to, be in the same room with her, and she'll talk to people about... She's not going to turn up. Apparently, the hotel, they've barely even finished the swimming pool, so it's a complete sort of building site.
So they're basically going there probably, and the pay of the people who developed the wellness centre to bring some publicity to the wellness centre so they can do some business. I bet you that's what it is.
Yes, but also so Meghan and Harry can make a couple more $100,000.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is it'll be a complete exchange of money where you come and promote our wellness centre. We'll pay you $200,000 and you can talk to people about wellness.
Absolutely. It's a complete and utter sham.
Yeah, and they're calling it a mini royal tour, but it isn't a mini royal tour.
They do this. They keep going around the world and saying it's a royal tour, you know.
And it's not.
It's not.
It's shocking. Absolutely shocking.
But it'll give us some more fun. I mean, it's really, really fun when these two go abroad and start trying to do things like this. Because it will all go wrong.
It will. And she'll get, because occasionally she gets caught in an expression which is not the one that she wanted you to see, where she's like glowering at him or something like that, or just looking really, really angry. She grabs him
and she does this Richter's
or moving him around.
We're really happy, babe. Look at the cameras. Yeah. And then he looks with his dead eyes. He looks into the camera, this 1,000-yard stare where he's just like, I'm so miserable.
Yeah, right.
I'm so miserable. I'm practically suicidal. Get me out of here.
Yeah, I know. It is shocking, isn't it? But
I've said I give them 5 years.
Yeah.
But I now give them probably about another year before that marriage just falls apart.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're about right there. And also, of course, the problem with old Hazard. By the way, you might have noticed there's another plate behind us over there. See that? Somebody sent in a plate of William and Kate to go along with the one of Harry and Meghan. So let's see. If I ask Ziggy what the outer part of a tree trunk is, will he say bark?
Oh.
Very good. Yeah, very possibly. He started doing that thing that old dogs do, by the way, of just barking for no reason, right? It's like he was sitting in the kitchen yesterday and he just started barking.
I think is it when they're going a bit deaf?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I think and also, he occasionally will see something in the garden that he wants to chase, but now he's just doing it when he's lying down. He just barks for no reason. It's quite sweet.
Well, Ludo had a great joke.
Yeah? Go on.
There were two hats walking along the road.
Uh-huh.
One said to the other one, I'll wait here, you go on ahead.
Very good. Very good. Well done, Ludo. He's more intelligent than anybody in the government, quite frankly. If you put him in charge, he'd do a better job than Steve Reed, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
At least he knows what a ship looks like, Emma Wolf, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. We've got loads more to do. First, though, I guess, with the real news, here's Edward Hughes.
MG. Let's get this week started. I'm Edward Hughes, and this is your news. Good morning. The UK is closely monitoring the escalating war with Iran, now in its 4th week, as oil prices surge and threaten household bills. Huge weapon Keir Starmer will chair a Cobra meeting this morning to discuss the conflict's impact on the cost of living, with British Gas warning that further energy price rises are inescapable if crude stays high. A UK minister has stated there's no evidence Iran has the capability or intent to strike Britain directly. In other news, an arson attack on Jewish volunteer ambulances in North London is being treated as an anti-Semitic hate crime. Health Secretary Wes, Mandy's mate. Streeting has praised the response to a meningitis outbreak in Kent, where confirmed cases have dropped to 20. Sport. Manchester City lifted the Carabao Cup after defeating Arsenal at Wembley, There goes the quadruple. That's the UK headlines. Please remember to like and subscribe. Latest Tigers.
Thank you very much indeed, Edward Hughes there with the news. Much more substantial individual than Hugh Edwards, who's on the front page of the Daily Mail today. Talking absolute and utter cobblers. Hard to believe. Right now, though, we're going to bring you Johnny Gould, who is with us, of course. He's a broadcaster, a man who knows a thing or two about the football. Probably be, like me, happy that Arsenal didn't win yesterday, but there we are. A horrible Arsenal attack overnight, though, Johnny. Before we talk about anything else, let me just play you, I think, a clip that we have of 4 ambulances run by a Jewish charity in Golders Green having been set on fire by 3 people they believe they are seeking in response to what happened. Have a look.
Doesn't matter. We don't see it anymore. What happened here? These are the sirens I was hearing. Whoa, 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 too close. Yo, huge explosion. Oh, he on the shit.
Well, obviously that's breaking news. It happened around about 1:45, I believe, this morning. Johnny, what can you tell us about it?
Yes, precisely. Good morning, Mike. What a disturbing way to start the week. The ambulances was positioned in a parking area, a heavily urbanized residential area, and they all exploded all at once. And just to tell you what Hatzalah is, it is an ambulance service run entirely by charitable donations and volunteers. It's run 24 hours a day, 365 days a week. There are 61 medically trained professionals who operate and run it. It is not just for the Jewish community. And it's a reckless, vicious, anti-Semitic attack upon that community, but not just that community. When I mean that community, I mean British people. It's not just for Jewish people. This is an attack on sovereign soil in this country, to all the values. What were the ambulances there to do? They're there to save lives. What are these people? These 3 thugs who go at 1:36, utter cowards. Utter cowards. It is a disgusting disgrace.
Yes. And fortunately, I think I'm right in saying nobody was injured as a result of what they did. But I mean, clearly, that was a pretty big explosion. So whatever caused it would have been a danger to anybody in the vicinity, and possibly if it was some kind of manufactured sort of, amateurish bomb, wherever it was made, it was a danger to the people living around it.
If you look at the vape shop attack last week or whatever it was in Glasgow, which burned the whole of the neighbourhood down near the station, I mean, that block of flats is next door to it. There's flats just across the street as well. Yeah. It should be pointed out, I did check in the beginnings just ahead of this, Mike, that Golders Green is not a majority Jewish area. Of course it is where a concentration of Jewish people live. But 51% of the population is not Jewish. There are Hindus, there are Iranian Farsis, there are Muslims, there are Christians. And it is an area which has been a Jewish area, so to speak, for 100 years or so, since the kind of Golders Green district came about. So this is, I mean, if you go to Golders Green now, the Jewish area has retreated a little bit further down the street where these ambulances are parked. And it is a typically everywhere Zone 3 kind of London place. So this is, make no mistake, Mike, this is not an attack on the Jewish community. This is a responsibility for all of us to say this has got to stop. This is Britain, not just the Jewish community.
Yeah, absolutely right. And of course, talking to Ed Wolf about it this morning, you have to ask the question, will the police be as thoroughly investigating this incident as we would like them to? Because obviously we've seen in the past that sometimes the police are a little bit slow off the mark when it comes to anti-Semitism, because there have been, let's face it, quite a few of these types of attacks. I seem to remember there was an MP who lived not far from Golders Green, I think, who had his garage set fire to, I think, a couple of years ago now? And nothing much happened about that.
That's right. Mike left politics because of it, and the constituency, which was Mrs. Thatcher's, ended up in Labour hands, despite the best attempts of Alex Dean to try and wrest it from Sarah Sackman, which was a great shame, because I always thought Alex Dean would have been a fantastic, effective kind of opposition leader to Sadiq Khan, operating as he would have done from Finchley and Golders Green. But by the by, this is a heinous attack, and in its way, it's just as disturbing as Heaton Park, which was obviously a knife attack on Yom Kippur, because we see that, those CCTV is employed in all Jewish buildings and all synagogues, and there's muscle outside our synagogues and schools and community centres pretty much every day. It cannot stop this heinous attack, and I do worry about what Jewish building will be burnt down or what public figure might be attacked in the coming days. I mean, we have an epidemic, and this isn't just an anti-Semitic attack. This is an attack on British soil to British people, and I think we need to address this. We need to say this clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. And whenever I speak to members of the Jewish community, friends of mine, who I don't regard, and I never did regard as members of the Jewish community, they were just friends of mine, But whenever I meet people, Lance Foreman, one, for example, and yourself, people are worried and concerned. And I hear people talk about leaving the country, moving to another part of the world, and even saying that, you might be safer in Israel than you are here.
Identity politics is the scourge, Mike. This idea that we have to say we're, Jewish, or we're, Catholic or Hindu or Muslim or LGBT, whatever that is, lumping all people who aren't heterosexual together into one lump when people just want to lead quiet lives. It is a scourge, and it creates a hierarchy of racism where, as you say, Mike, anti-Semitic crimes like this blatant one are not investigated. Like they stopped the match at Sunderland Newcastle yesterday, quite rightly so, because a Sunderland player copped it from a couple of Newcastle fans calling him something unacceptable. But the Premier League stopped the game, right? And, let's fish out these Newcastle fans, and they should never play. Well, what about this? Happens 12 hours later. It's a heinous crime. It is in its way worse than calling someone names. I know I'm not saying that's bad. Of course it's bad as well. But, we should be treating these crimes as a security issue for the whole of Britain.
Indeed. But of course, the government doesn't exactly lead in that way, does it? It doesn't want you to want to talk about it. It would rather not talk about it. It would rather allow the El Quds march. It would rather allow people to walk the streets of London, chanting death to America, death to Israel, death to Jews. And yet they still allow it to happen week in, week out. Palestinian action still wandering about the place. And I guess what's going on currently in the Middle East is not helping.
No, it's getting worse, isn't it, Mike? I mean, we are seeing these attacks over and over again, not just in Britain, but across the world. We, of course, saw Bondi Beach in Australia. We see buildings in America being shot at regularly, and they're armed there as well, which takes it to a completely different level. And of course, this will be magnified all over the world, all of the time. And I do worry about what might happen this week and in the coming months to the Jewish community in this country. I do worry about it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, because everybody's now kind of on tenterhooks as to what's happening in the Straits of Hormuz. We've got a deadline coming up tonight, 11:45, I believe, from Donald Trump, who says, we're going to obliterate Iran's capabilities to produce anything at all if they don't allow the Straits of Hormuz to be opened up. The Iranians saying they're going to retaliate. There's talk of, the possibility that Iran can now launch a missile strike against Western Europe, not necessarily Britain, but possibly Western Europe. It's a difficult place for people to be at the moment.
Yes, I mean, the whole world is under attack from Iran. I've been saying it on my podcast, Johnny Gould's Jewish State, for the last 7 years, that Iran, not particularly Russia or China, but Iran are the greatest threat to world peace. And I suppose the one positive, I'm trying to put a positive spin on Iran attacking their great mates Qatar and the guys who they tried to come together with, the UAE and Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, as they did after the Abraham Accords was signed. They're indiscriminately attacking the Gulf. And knowing what I know about the Gulf, and I've come to make friends in the Gulf since the Abraham Accords, is that they don't want war. They are against the Shia extremism. They are Sunni Muslims, and they want stability. Geopolitically, these are the richest people in the world.
Yeah.
And what do they want? They want stability, not war. It's good for business. And who represents stability in the Middle East more than Israel? So it is forcing, if you like, those skeptical of Israel on the Muslim side of the Gulf onto Israel's side, because Israel represents stability in a way that Iran only encourages war.
And that is the problem, isn't it? Because you've got a state of play in this country where you've got a prime minister and a government who are frightened to upset the Muslim community as they see it, and so who therefore quite often don't say things. I mean, I've got into all sorts of arguments over the weekend because Starmer put out a, happy Eid Mubarak to every Muslim, both in Britain and around the world, to which I said, well, some of them are actually firing missiles at us. So it's all very well saying congratulations, but, maybe this is not the best time to say it. And the amount of grief I got from people saying, they're not firing them at us, they're not firing. Well, they are actually. They're firing them at a British base in Diego Garcia. They've also fired drones at Cyprus at another British base, which happens to be a British protectorate, happens to be British land, And so people have asked this morning, has Keir Starmer said anything? 13 minutes ago, he said this. This is a deeply shocking anti-Semitic arson attack. My thoughts are with the Jewish community who are waking up this morning to this horrific news. Anti-Semitism has no place in our society. Anyone with any information must come forward to the police. Well, so at least he said something, which is an improvement on previous situations. And the question is, will he actually follow through and make sure that the police do make some arrests and actually charge some people?
That's right, Mike. I mean, in theory, he's against anti-Semitism. In practice, he is effectively fanning anti-Semitism. I talked to you before about the formation of the Palestinian embassy, according them the same diplomatic rights as the United States or Sweden or Japan. And I went to I didn't go, obviously. I saw an iftar celebration, which Starmer went to, where Hassan Zomlot, the ambassador of Palestine, started sort of stroking his arm and saying sweet nothings into his ear. And Starmer just looked like, I need to get away from him. And like his eyes were like rabbits in headlights.
It was very odd. In fact, well, it wasn't just
close attention, did he?
No, but it wasn't just an iftar that he went to. It was one that he organised because it was in Westminster Hall, and he invited the so-called Palestinian ambassador, who, for all intents and purposes, treated Starmer like his gimp. And that was what I saw. This is a guy who is completely and utterly in charge of this couple's relationship, right? He's stroking his arm, but he's also holding on to it so that he can't get away, even if he wants to. It was a very weird scene.
He was delighted to shake hands with whoever was there next to him in the row, whatever his identity was, just to get away from this bloke. Yes, I mean, he's offered him a huge gift, that Palestinian embassy, with no conditions, Mike. At the point where they did it, he didn't say Hamas must rearm. He didn't say bring back the few hostages which were left in Gaza. He acknowledged and gave it a hallmark as a terror state. That's what he did at that point. There has been no change in what Palestine represents. And now whoever comes into power after Starmer, whatever they feel about the two-state solution, again, whatever that is, will never be able to repeal the idea of a Palestinian embassy in London. That ship has sailed. And I think it's extremely bad news for London.
Yes. Well, Phil says this on the subject of that, tweeted it. How long will it take for Sadiq Khan to remind us how Muslims feel threatened and demand more action against Islamophobia? Because that's exactly what he probably will do, as ever. But Johnny, listen, great to see you. Great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Just remind people where they can find your podcast.
Thank you very much, Mike. You can find it at Johnny Gould's Jewish State. You can find it on Apple, Spotify, even YouTube.
Great stuff. Thank you very much indeed. A little bit of a development actually over the weekend, Pooch, because I think we've managed to find a way to get our podcast out to Spotify and to Apple Podcasts, which means you can now go there and find it. So I put a link out yesterday. We'll do another one today. Also, just a reminder that we're almost out of bumper stickers, by the way. So if you want one, you know what to do. Send your stamped addressed envelope, C5 size, by the way, to fit an A5 bumper sticker. The Mike Graham Show, PO Box 257, Battle, East Sussex, TN33 3FS. If you want a bumper sticker, because I'm not sure if we're going to get any more made. So once those have gone, there's a final 100 or so, then we're not sure if there's going to be any more. Super chat from Bam Bams. Is Edward Hughes real or AI? Arguments are happening. Well, it's a good question. Very good question. And one from John Dingle, who says, the alleged McSweeney phone had a ring piece ringtone. Really? Thank you, John, for that. It's a bit early for that sort of talk. Anyway, listen, we've got loads more coming up on the show. Alp Mehmet is going to be joining us later on from Migration Watch. He'll be talking to us about the new laws that are going to be coming in to stop migrants coming over the channel, because apparently the deal that we have with France, £475 million of it, is up at the end of March. So we're going to have to get a new deal with France. But as Emma Wolf said earlier, what exactly did we get for that money? The French stopped just over a third of all attempted crossings last year. The UK pays nearly 2/3 of the annual £250 million cost of French illegal migration patrols in northern France. Brilliant. And this is something that a lot of people have said. Dorney, revoke French fishing licences in UK waters unless they do their job. Well, that would be nice. And then one more. The French have sent troops to Iran to train the Iranian troops how to surrender properly. Yeah, you may well be right. Absolutely incredible stuff. Now, we've got a phone poll, not a phone poll, a poll going on Morgan McSweeney's phone, which it says, where is Morgan McSweeney's phone? Is it up Peter Mandelson's rear end? Is it in his other coat? Is it at the bottom of the sea? Or is it in Lord Ali's penthouse? So far, 61% of you seem to think the first one, the first option is the one is up Mandelson's rear end. Now, right now, we've got a second guest for you, Colonel Bob Stewart, good friend of the show, former British Army officer, of course, and former Conservative MP for Beckenham, with some very much frontline experience in defence, security and international affairs. I first encountered Bob in Bosnia, funnily enough, many, many years ago. Colonel Bob, very good morning to you.
Hello, Mike. Good morning.
Good to see you. We live in rather tense times at the moment. It's difficult to know precisely how serious the problem is. How serious do you view the current situation in the Straits of Hormuz, and do you see an end to it?
Well, it's extremely serious. Obviously, everyone realises that. An end to it will only come, actually, when the current Iranian regime falls, which is actually... really, whatever anyone says, that's what everyone wants to happen. Yeah. Every sensible person wants to happen. American policy was smash all the nuclear facilities so they cannot actually fire nuclear or sub-nuclear munitions at friendly nations. But actually, the implied mission was also to get rid of the regime. Now, that's what has happened. Is that they seem to have effectively smashed a lot of the infrastructure, although still they're managing to throw out missiles, Iran. But what the hope was, and I remember listening to this, the hope was that the Iranian people would rise up. Mike, would you rise up if you were a normal Iranian person in, say, Tehran or Shiraz, against a regime that has got all these thugs ready to put you down immediately? Because those thugs, if the regime changes, will have no job and have no hold on the people. Now, the problem is that actually that isn't happening. Although there are indications, I gather, that people are thinking about it. For example, in Shiraz, I heard rumours that people were getting hold of weapons. And there's sort of I've seen a video of where people put the sound of an approaching drone onto their car stereo system as they go through a checkpoint, and the people on the checkpoint do a runner. Whether that's AI, I don't know. And also, of course, the president, who's a guy called Pozeskian, Mossad Pozeskian, has rumoured to have tried to resign, but being told, you're not to resign, you're not resigning, go back and shut up, you're not resigning. Because, of course, the top so-called leaders, well, they are leaders in Iran, are now fearful for their lives. Because someone in Iran is telling the Israelis, the Americans, where these characters are. Servants or people see them passing by or whatever. And so they are being identifiable, and that will put them into a dreadful fright, I'm sure.
Yes, I mean, one of the sort of pieces of analysis I was listening to over the last several hours was from The Economist's man in Jerusalem, who said there are fears from some quarters that all of the people who have been taken out, if you like, from the leadership of the IRGC, and people who were running Iran, including the former Ayatollah, were the sort of moderates, if you like, and that now they've kind of got whittled down to a grade a little bit below that, where these people are actually even more fanatical than the ones who were killed. So, I mean, that could be detrimental, could it not?
Yes, it could. Here's the problem is there's also some sort of rumour that the IRGC want to take over from the mullahs to ensure their positioning. I mean, these people, it's going to be extremely difficult to dislodge those that have all these weapons and the powers of coercion over the people who are actually terrified of these guys. I mean, they don't seem to be bound by any kind of civilized law whatsoever. If they feel you've done something wrong, they will kill you, shoot you, string you up without any kind of court.
Exactly right. So, I mean, in terms of this deadline tonight, we are told, I think it's 11:45 tonight, the deadline from Donald Trump, who's basically said, if you don't open the Straits of Hormuz, I will obliterate Iranian sort of infrastructure to the point where you won't be able to generate any electricity or anything. They've obviously threatened to retaliate and said, we'll take out a load of stuff in Israel. I mean, it's not been as easy militarily as everybody in Washington, D.C. obviously thought at the beginning.
Well, they clearly thought that, they would bash them hard and they would come to heel. That's actually absolutely, totally wrong. It's clearly wrong. But it's all because those people in power actually don't want to lose power, because if they do, they will be gone. I seem to remember, I'm old enough, I think I'm older than you, much older than you.
Not much.
1979, when the Shah fell.
Yeah.
Huge numbers, and I remember I was relatively young. I remember seeing all these poor devils who were linked to the Shah's regime were executed, actually murdered, and they were put in sort of drawers in morgues, and the drawers are pulled out, and all these people were there. Well, this is what the people in power probably think is a likely scenario for them if they lose power, and thus their incentive not to give an inch. And they may well be more hardline than Khamenei, the last guy, or Masood, the new guy, Mojtaba Khamenei, the son. They may be. He's not been seen, by the way, as you know. He's not been seen. The rumor is that he's lost a leg or he's in a coma, and he's only posted a couple of things on X, but he hasn't been seen by anyone. And that's quite interesting, because surely, normally when there's a change of regime, the new fellow, it normally is a fellow, I haven't seen many girls take over these regimes, that appears immediately or very quickly on the media. And there's been no sign of it. So there is some doubt about just who is actually, whether the supreme leader is Khamenei is still around, or whether it's the people underneath him pulling the strings and keeping him alive by just not declaring he's dead or very badly injured.
Yes. And I mean, I was talking to somebody in the States about this yesterday. It seems inconceivable that if you're sitting in the White House Situation Room or you're sitting in the Oval Office and you're planning this attack on Iran, that somebody doesn't say, because they've all sort of expressed surprise that the Iranians didn't just roll over, that somebody didn't say, surely as part of your kind of war gaming, you might do, well, what if they decide to retaliate and start hitting other countries in the Gulf, like Qatar, like the UAE, like Bahrain? The Americans seem to be asking us to believe that they didn't see that coming. Is that possible?
Well, I find it pretty amazing, because the basic concept of when you do these sort of operations, as I know, is someone has got to say, well, what are we trying to achieve? What are we trying to achieve, and what's the end game, and what will it look like thereafter? I mean, the Shah's son is a possibility, but he's not universally popular in Iran by any means, and he hasn't been there. I mean, the poor devils that live there, the normal people, I venture to suggest like you and I, who are living there, are terrified that if they do something wrong, they will be exterminated. And, not just them, their entire families. Look what's happened about these Iranian women that were in Australia. Pressure's been put on their families that if they don't come back, you lot will be toast. Probably. That's probably why they've decided to go home.
Yeah.
And the normal people in Iran are terrified. But I think the Americans were somewhat naively thinking that the people would rise up in a great rebellion like they did several months ago, which they did. And I seem to remember the President of the United States saying, "We're with you, we're coming to help you," and then did nothing. And all these people, some say 30,000 plus, have been massacred. So what's the lesson for them in Iran? The lesson for them in Iran is we better not do anything because actually we'll just be murdered.
Right. And I mean, overnight we were all looking at interviews done by Steve Reed, who's the least, I would say, sort of confident.
Isn't he the housing secretary?
Well, he's the housing and community secretary. He's out speaking on behalf of the government on defence policy, right? This is a bloke who used to run Lambeth Council, which couldn't actually organise your bin collection, never mind, defence of the realm. He's saying that, we basically don't have any evidence that the Israelis are right to say that the Iranians could fire a missile in our direction, which could reach the UK. And he says basically that we have the capability of dealing with that if it was to happen. Well, I'm not sure he's right about that. We found out at the weekend that the Prime Minister concealed from the public the fact that Iran fired a missile at Diego Garcia in the Chagos Islands, and only because of one failing and one being shot down by the Americans, it didn't really do any damage. But, up until that moment, we were told that our intelligence on Iran was that they couldn't fire a missile more than 2,000 kilometres. Well, that was 4,000 kilometres. So clearly they've got more sort of firepower than we thought they had.
That information came out from United States media. I remember here it was reported that it was the Wall Street Journal that broke that news. And it took our lot, and the BBC were spectacularly slow in announcing this or getting on side with this news. And I just wonder why is that? Why does the BBC, who's normally, I use the BBC a lot to get my information. Indeed, when I went to Bosnia, the CFAX service of the BBC told me I was deploying. It wasn't the MOD.
Right.
They were the first people to break the news. They should. I mean, I remember sitting in Germany and watching CFAX. Shit. Sorry for that language. It looks like I'm deploying. It was the BBC. Well, if the BBC says it must be right, well, the BBC's absolutely gives out some information that might not suit their scenario, their game, at the speed of a striking slug. Why? Why didn't the BBC on top of it? Wall Street Journal, it took them at least 24 hours to come clean and say this is happening. And then the Daily Mail is saying, the Prime Minister hid this information. I don't know whether he hid it or he did not, but either way, it seemed to take a long time for this information about missiles to come through. We must not give up the Chagos Islands under any circumstances. This is a strategic asset for the United Kingdom and the West, as is Akrotiri and Dikalia. Remember, there are two basic areas in Cyprus. They always talk about RAF Akrotiri, the south, but there's Dikalia on the thing. And this was guaranteed in perpetuity in 1960. I know because I was a little boy living in Cyprus at the time with my parents. This independence of Cyprus guaranteed the sovereignty, which means that our bases in Cyprus are as British as Kent, Sussex, Norfolk, and Northumberland. And that actually, indeed, the laws there are British, and they've got judges and police officers who are British in the area. We must not give them up. We must not. It was absolutely madness for Chagos to be considered to be handed back. The Chagosians don't want it. I mean, under what laws, international laws, do people that actually live and come from those countries say they don't want it to happen? national self-determination means that the people who live there determine what happens there. And they certainly do not want to go to Mauritius, which is actually dominated by China. God help us.
I know. And also this weekend it's been proven, has it not, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that actually other countries in the world who we would regard as the enemy regard Chagos and regard Diego Garcia as very much part of the Western world, very much part of the UK and the US. They don't want it to be part of China, or perhaps they do, but they certainly are attacking it, not because it's Chinese, but because it's British, and that's the point. But what about finally, Bob? Let me ask you about. I know the Navy's not necessarily your neck of the woods, as it were, but what the hell's going on?
Well, hang on. I've got a son in the Royal Marines, so
okay.
I've got a skin in this fight.
Okay. Well, what the hell's going on with HMS Dragon? I was told last weekend that it was actually anchored off the coast of Cornwall. It still hasn't reached Cyprus. We're now into week 4 of this conflict, and we were promised that it was going to be there in 2 weeks, about 2 weeks ago. I don't know where it is. My suspicion is it's being refitted at sea as opposed to actually being ready for action.
Well, I mean, the Navy is in a parlous state. Anyone that goes near Portsmouth or Plymouth, just look at the number of ships that seem to be underneath tarpaulins. I mean, these Type 45 are meant to be state-of-the-art things, but they don't seem to manage to get one that can move. I mean, I saw a lovely meme where the HMS Dragon was in Portsmouth or wherever, and you heard the sort of them trying to start the bloody thing, and it just and then you heard, oh, for God's sake, get the bloody thing going, and it still wouldn't start up. I just thought this is fabulous. I mean, whether AI can sometimes actually hit it, I don't know. I mean, it's a bit like the chaps in Tehran who put the sound of an approaching missile onto their loudspeakers in their car. I mean, I don't quite know what the sound of an approaching missile is like, because in principle, the first thing you know is when the damn thing goes off.
Yeah, well, quite.
But I presume what they're doing is anti-aircraft fire at it, coming in. But I mean, there we are. I mean, I feel I'm very, very pro-Iranian. Remember, they are Persian.
Yeah.
They're not Arabs. They've got civilization that stinks compared with ours. Goes back thousands and thousands of years, and they're very well educated, and actually, in a way, more than in a way, we really should try and help as much as we can to get these lovely people. The vast majority of Iran wants to be free of these people. But they are terrified to actually say that because of what will happen. My final point, if this is the last question, is the reason why the Iranian people aren't on the streets is because they fear that if they come out on the streets, what happened several months ago will happen again. 30,000 plus of them will be murdered. And it's really pretty naive for people. Stan was right in one respect. He said you can't bomb people to regime change. Boots on the ground? Well, if the Americans are serious, they might have to consider doing that. But their plan, it seems to be, on the news this morning, was that they're looking towards a ceasefire where they declare they've achieved their aims. Well, they haven't, actually. They won't have done, because actually the aim is to remove the threat, and the only way you can remove the threat is to remove these, dare I say, bastards who are actually dominating Iran and destroying the lives of so many people.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more with you, Bob. Great to see you. Thank you very much indeed for talking to us. Colonel Bob Stewart there, former commander, of course, of British forces in Bosnia and elsewhere for many, many decades. A fine man, a former MP, of course, as well. We're going to talk to Claire Pearsall in a moment. We've got lots more to do there. A couple of super chats, perhaps, to do. Some other really, really good messages coming in. Persians were Christians and were forced into the Islamic faith. Fraser says, it's been a damn fine show again. We're still an hour and 20 minutes to go. Bob Stewart, one of the best ex-army officers, along with Richard Kemp. Here's one from John who says, Keir and Mandy both loudly declared bottoms up at a party. And a Ukrainian, I can't get to that bit, sorry. Is Al Donald back on? Sorry. And an Ukrainian rent boy was allegedly seen mincing about number 10 Downing Street afterwards. Well, you may well say that. I couldn't possibly comment. Watching in Malta, flights and tickets booked for the 6th of May, says Karen. Karen, very glad to hear it. The 6th of May, of course, our live show, which has still got some tickets available. Go to Ticketmaster. Lewis McLeod is going to be joining us. We're going to be joined by Intel Lady as well, who's been putting out some great stuff of late about... she's doing this sort of Mickey take of the newsagents, which is hilarious. Her as Emily Maitlis is absolutely brilliant. And of course, she's also going to be joined by the Right Said Fred are going to be there as well. And also, we're going to be doing Carol Decker, who's going to be turning up to join in the fun as well. Loads and loads of other people being Stephen Barrett as well. He's going to be there, of course, our favourite neighbourhood friendly barrister lawyer. And I wonder whether we should do this, Pooch, before we talk to Claire. Have a look at this Mickey take of Keir Starmer. The reason being, it was on something called SNL UK, Saturday Night Live UK, at the weekend. And of course, it involved all sorts of American comedians, British various different personalities. But the thing that I want you to look at here is basically... apart from it being very funny about Keir Starmer, it was actually retweeted by Donald Trump. So President Trump retweeted this kind of embarrassing clip. I mean, they've got him down to a T, haven't they? That Lammy impersonator is brilliant. Very, very funny. Very funny indeed. Cindy says this on a super chat. Mike, please give a shout out to the chat. It's the best chat communication ever. Keeps me smiling. That's the chat, I'm assuming, that goes on every single day on the show live on the YouTube channel. And you can, of course, watch it if you want it ad-free on YouTube Premium. Or if you want it ad-free, you can watch it on Substack as a paid subscriber. But right now, I'm delighted to say we're very close to 12 million views as we start the new week. So the bottom line is that we will hope to get to maybe 13 million by the end of the week, which is kind of what we're doing. We're up to 144,000 subscribers. We'd like to keep pushing that as well. So please do help us out with that. If you haven't liked and subscribed to the channel, please do. It doesn't cost you any money. But it does help our algorithm. It does help us push forward all the way. Yes, indeed, it does. Let's talk to Claire Pearsall, former advisor to various governments, I dare say would be fair to say. Claire, very good morning to you. I mean, you've got to say, they've absolutely got Starmer and Lammy down pat on that little sketch there, haven't they?
Absolutely. It's absolutely cracking piece of comedy that went on. I mean, sadly, I didn't watch it live. I had to get up stupidly early to do a breakfast show. So sadly, I didn't, but I've caught up with it. And that is absolutely spot on. And we've missed comedy like that. It's been a long time since we've had proper political satire in this country. And at the moment, there's so much material available for it.
Well, can you imagine? I mean, I know Spitting Image is still operational. In fact, Lewis McLeod does it, I think, occasionally in a live version, but it's not any longer what it used to be under John Major. I always remember it was one of those things you had to watch, wasn't it? It was so funny. John Major was this grey man and all these other characters around, because there are plenty of them. But I've never seen a government quite in such paralysis as this one is at the moment. You know, they're accused on the front page of the Daily Mail today of keeping the public in the dark. Hemi Badenoch says that there is now a culture of covering up the cover-up. And it is extraordinary that the British government saw fit not to tell the British people that a missile had been fired from Iran towards a British territory, i.e. the Chagos Islands and the Diego Garcia military base. And we had to find out from the Americans.
I know, and this is the worrying thing about this government. It feels that we don't need to know about this information. It feels that we have no right to the information, but it's also keeping parliamentarians in the dark. If you're an elected representative, then you expect to be abreast of all of the information. You expect to hear about what the plans are in the chamber. So I should imagine that today in the House of Commons, it's going to be quite brutal for the Prime Minister. I should imagine people are already submitting urgent questions requests into the Speaker's office. And I think the Speaker is fed up with the government as well, which is quite a turnaround of events if you think about it. The Speaker normally just gets on with the business of the House, but I think that he is now so angry with this lack of respect for members that he is going to make this incredibly difficult for the Prime Minister. So I look forward to that this afternoon. It's always good to see the Prime Minister in an uncomfortable position. Yeah. Let's hope he doesn't send out some junior minister to take the beating.
Well, he's having some kind of Cobra meeting, isn't he, this morning, which has now become so kind of commonplace that there's not really much point in even commenting on it. Because, yeah, of course, we're in a sort of constant state of Cobra meetings because there's one crisis after another. I mean, I can't remember the last time we didn't have a crisis in this country, and I'm talking about even all the way back to July 24.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if in doubt, hold a Cobra meeting, because then he could go and hide away and say, oh, well, this is all very secret and we shouldn't trouble you mere mortals with the details. And he can hide behind that and go and sit in his underground bunker somewhere. I think it's massive disrespect for the British people. We should have that information. If somebody's taking potshots towards territory of the United Kingdom that possibly could even reach into Europe and reach us, then we need to know about that. We need to know what the government response is likely to be. Right. But can you imagine if there was a missile heading this way, how much dithering would that Prime Minister undertake? And what risk would we all be in? He'd sit there weighing up all the information, he'd want all the details and probably have let it sleep overnight whilst all of that ballistic missile is heading in our direction. Yeah. So I don't trust him to have his finger on the button ready to protect us in the slightest.
Well, I mean, we were not convinced, were we? I certainly wasn't, by Steve Reid yesterday. And I mean, as Emma Wolf said when she was in, where's, Yvette Cooper? Where's the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood? Where's the Defence Secretary, John Healey? The three big sort of, ministries of state, if you like. And instead we get the Housing and Communities Minister who used to run Lambeth Council talking about defending Britain from attack. And you kind of go, well, how would you know? They probably wouldn't even give you security clearance to find out what we can even do. But he maintained that we could certainly defend our skies. That's the impression he gave. But I don't know that we can. I don't see any evidence that we've got any kind of Iron Dome scenario like the Saudis and the Qataris and the UAE have got, or like Israel's got. We haven't got anything like that.
No, we have absolutely nothing like that. And we had a housing secretary who was formerly a DEFRA secretary, whose most famous achievement was getting a pair of Wellington boots from Lord Ali back in 2024. And there's some very expensive ones, and they were very nice, I have to admit. But he's not going to be much use when we're talking about defence. What you need is the Foreign Secretary to say what conversations she's been having on the world stage, the Defence Secretary to tell us what our readiness for war actually is, because this is now becoming incredibly serious for us. Yeah. It's not just something that's happening over in Iran, which is 4,000 kilometres more away. Right. This could be on our shores before we know it. And I think that there is a real serious threat to the UK that nobody is telling us. Nobody is giving us any kind of scenario. And I should imagine Keir Starmer is just bimbling around this morning, eating his cornflakes and flicking through the front of The Guardian. Yes. He doesn't seem to have any kind of urgency about it. And that should worry us.
Yeah, it really should. And as far as all of this nonsense that we keep hearing that we are not involved in the broader war and we are not going to get involved in the broader war. Sorry, well, you already are. If missiles are being fired at Diego Garcia, a British territory, if drones have been fired at Cyprus, which they have, another British territory, if HMS Dragon, God knows where it is still on its way. Somebody said to me this morning, it can swim quicker to Cyprus than this thing's getting there. If we are in a position to give bases to the Americans to launch attacks on Iran from, I'm sorry, whoever you think you are, Steve Reid, we are involved in a wider scale war, aren't we?
Yeah, we were always involved. The minute that RAF Akrotiri came under threat from drone strike, we needed to be in a state of alertness. And if you remember back to that, the Greeks were saying, where are you? What are you doing to protect your bases? And the French had to come out and rescue us. The Germans sent a boat to come and protect the island. And we were sort of, I don't know, mopping down the decks. Now, I don't blame the armed forces staff at all. I firmly blame this on the Prime Minister and on the Defence Secretary for not having a forward look at what is likely to happen. We all saw signs of a conflict starting back in January. Why not have all of your stuff ready to go for when you need it? You could have even put HMS Dragon out there as a preemptive, even if you then had to turn it round. Those armed forces personnel are now all over the place. Their families, I was speaking to an RAF friend at the end of last week to say that the families of those individuals who are serving are now homeless because they've had to be moved out of some accommodation to go into the next accommodation to join their partners and husbands and wives over in Akrotiri. And of course, there's no space for them and nobody's thought about it. So this lack of thought and lack of prepared thinking just shows you what an absolute shambles this government is.
Absolutely right. We've got a clip from Sky from yesterday about this Cobra meeting, which is going to take place this morning. Let's have a look.
Sky News understands that the Prime Minister Keir Starmer will chair a meeting of the government's Emergency Cobra Committee tomorrow. Our politics correspondent Nick Martin joins us now from Westminster. This is significant, Nick.
Yeah, Cobra meetings are always significant. They are usually taking place during times of crisis when situations are changing very quickly. Sky News understands that Sir Keir Starmer will chair a meeting of Cobra tomorrow. We would expect them to be talking about the ongoing situation in the Middle East, but also how that is trickling down to households in the UK and what measures the government might have to put in place to protect households from rising bills, fuel prices, etc. So I think it is significant, but I don't think it should be, we should overthink it. This is not the first Cobra meeting that's taken place since the war in Iran started, and I think it is a sign that the government know that this is a fast-moving, fluid situation.
Yeah, so the Cobra meeting again, as you say, going on today, but I'm sure they're not going to learn anything, I don't think. It seems as though equally as much as Starmer doesn't know what to do, he doesn't appear to be much in the loop either. I mean, Donald Trump, as we said just before you came on, putting out that funny clip from Saturday Night Live UK, making fun of the Prime Minister. I mean, that pretty much sums up where we are in the world, doesn't it?
Yeah, we're an absolute laughing stock. You can imagine sort of world leaders around the place just sort of pointing and laughing and saying, oh, the UK, yes, I remember them. They used to be a power in the world.
Yeah.
And we're just reduced to some kind of basket case banana republic at the moment. If Keir Starmer's watching, and he absolutely should be, then Colonel Bob and myself, I'm sure, would be a welcome asset in his Cobra meeting and would actually get somebody moving. Yeah. But what is the point of having all these meetings if you're not going to make any definitive choices afterwards? The worst case at the moment I can see is they're going to start rationing things like petrol, telling you where and when you can drive. And then you're going to start having sort of problems at the supermarkets, and we go back to that horrible situation where people are scrabbling around for the last packet of pasta or toilet rolls.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to avoid. We've learned absolutely nothing from preparedness in the COVID era, and now this is actually much more serious. And again, we're just sort of skirting around the outsides going, oh, I'm sure it'll all be fine, when actually I'd much rather they prepared for the worst and saw us better.
Well, you would think, yeah, because, I mean, one of the front pages this morning, I think it's the I newspaper, has got fuel price rises are now inescapable. I mean, I went and bought some petrol just this morning, actually, and it was 150.9 just for regular unleaded, which is about 10p more than it was, I think, the last time I filled up, which was about 12 or so days ago. You know, once, again, like all of these things, once people start talking about rationing, the next thing you know, there'll be a queue out the back of the petrol station for people queuing up, which is not, you know, something that makes me feel particularly proud, but unfortunately that's what people do. But you've also got the state of play with you know, people asking for price caps to be put on the energy levels, and they're still saying, oh, don't worry, come the 1st of April, you'll be £150 better off on your energy bill. You're going, no, we won't be better off because it's all gone up massively since you said it was going to come down. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely is. I mean, I bought petrol on Friday and it was 143, just to give you an idea of how quickly that has gone up. And that made me sort of a bit squeamish putting my card in at that point because it was heinously expensive.
Yeah.
But what are they also going to do? Are they going to start saying that certain people can't buy petrol? And I think that's a concern. Are you going to be considered worthy enough to be able to have petrol? Because if you're running down resources, you don't know when they're going to be refilled. You obviously want your emergency services to be able to have fuel to carry on. But also then you've got truck drivers. And who else is considered to be a key worker? And it's just this horrible circling state of nobody knows what they're doing. I really wish that they would take in some external advice from people that perhaps have organised these things before.
Yeah.
Because the state that we will be in is absolutely perilous. If we're gridlocked, we can't drive anywhere, we can't buy anything, people can't go to work. Is that what the country needs at the moment? Oh, I don't think so. But I think Keir Starmer would rather have us all locked up in our houses.
Yeah. Oh, they love a lockdown. Well, I mean, so far the advice we've had from the government is to drink beer that's warm, apparently. That was Ed Miliband's advice, because that would save energy. So idiotic. And the advice that's come out of the sort of Ministry of Transport, you drive a bit slower, you know.
Yeah.
That's really not going to make any difference, guys. You know, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but, you know, you really need to have a slightly better, robust sort of ideas than that. But, I mean, you talk about COVID, this is why I think people have lost faith completely in government servers and in government departments, right? This is an extraordinary story. It's actually buried on page 2 of the Times this morning. But it's the UK Health Security Agency, which was set up back in 2021 at the height of COVID to protect Britain from outbreaks of disease, right? It's now supposedly going to be based at a new science hub in Harlow in Essex. Estimated costs for the site have increased sixfold from 530 million, which is what it was at the beginning, to now 3.2 billion. And it's not due to open properly until 2038. And you go, well, hang on a minute. We might have all died by then, either from a missile strike or from, you know, meningitis or, you know, flu, God knows what. And what are they doing? I mean, how can this government or any other government justify this kind of expenditure on something that we don't even actually need?
Because they're going to tell us that we need it, Mike. I mean, that's what you must understand, is that they know better than us, and they know that the process is worth waiting for. And that kind of money, it's fine. We can spend it because we're just going to raise taxes on someone else. I mean, it beggars belief that these people are allowed to get away with this. If this was a private business, and I know that we're talking about government, but if it was a private business, you can imagine they would be sacked by shareholders. There is no value for money. There is nothing to hold them to account. And I just want them taken out of power, because I think that this great country is just being run down to the point where it's going to be broken, and we're going to look a bit more like a desert country, and we're going to be living in mud huts. That's how I see it at the moment. It is that dire. Nothing works. Everything's broken. The Labour government spending money hand over fist on all of the wrong things.
Yes. And not improving the state of the nation, disimproving it, if anything. So, I mean, as far as what happens in the next few days, it feels to me as though we have no control. The government has no control. It'll be very much wait and see what Donald Trump does, and then try and establish whether or not you agree with it after it's happened.
No, but this is it. And it's all that sort of knee-jerk reaction, isn't it? So you can stand there and just go, yes, this is what I absolutely meant. But I think Trump is in real trouble and looking a little bit isolated with his latest war in Iran, saying that he'd won the war and it was going to be over imminently. So I think there are problems in America that he is not really aware of at the moment. However, at least he puts the messages out there, whereas this Prime Minister isn't in control, is having a lot of problems, and doesn't actually put any messages out there anyway. So, what can you do about it? He needs to be a little bit more Trump, Keir Starmer. He needs to have a little bit more of that gumption and a little bit more shooting from the hip. But he doesn't. He isn't ever going to have that level of personality, and we are just going to be reduced to a third world country.
Yeah, I know. It's absolutely shocking, dreadful. Now, our viewers are incredibly observant, and they've spotted that over your right shoulder there appears to be a guitar, and so they now think you're some kind of rock god. Also, somebody's asking, Lord Viking's asking, is that an Icelandic flag behind you?
Yes, it is. It is. I was taken away to Iceland for my big birthday that was in January, and we collect flags from places we go, just as a little bit of jollity. In the other room, we do actually have a Union flag. We have an American flag. So I'm open to flags.
That's good. And what about the guitar?
That's actually my son's guitar. I have no musical ability whatsoever. He has 2 guitars and he plays the saxophone. So he's the immensely talented one of the family. It's definitely not me.
Brilliant. Well, listen, Claire, as ever, incredibly incisive and great to talk to you. So thank you very much indeed. We should also hold on to our seats, I guess, for the next few days and see where we all end up. Hopefully not in a bad place. But thank you very much indeed. Claire Pearsall, their former government advisor. Very sensible woman, by the way, who quite frankly has nailed Starmer absolutely to the mast, because he doesn't know what to do. He really doesn't. They're having a Cobra meeting this morning. It's not clear exactly why they're having a Cobra meeting. It's not clear why they're even meeting, because there's nobody in that cabinet who knows what to do. Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary, yesterday, nowhere to be seen. John Healey, the Defence Secretary, nowhere to be seen. Shabana Mahmood, Home Secretary, nowhere to be seen. She's got a plan that she says today is going to make it possible to deport migrants without any kind of appeal whatsoever. In fact, deport them before they get a chance to talk to a lawyer. Well, you know that's not going to work. Everybody knows what's going to happen. And what's going to happen, right, is that they will get a human rights lawyer and they will get to stay in this country, and they will probably get compensation for being put through a terrible ordeal of being deported or being attempted to be deported, and then they'll be given a free house. You know that's exactly what's going to happen. Now, coming up, we're going to have my meltdown. But first of all, should we have a bit of heron action, possibly? We need a couple of herons to cheer us up. A couple came in over the course of the... Let's go. And there's that really, really fascinating... that's a different types of heron poster, actually. There's even more of them. My goodness me. Look at that. Fantastic. Which one?
Boat-billed heron. He's mad.
Where's he?
Top to the right.
Oh, yeah. Japanese night heron. Wow. Boot-billed. That's amazing. And also, the one down the bottom, von Schrenk's bitter heron. I mean, you've got to love nature, haven't you? Now, this from that came into the Mike Graham Show on Facebook. I shot this a while back in North Manchester Park. The details captured by the camera really shows just how beautiful these birds are. And that's from Steve. Steve, that is a lovely picture, isn't it? So beautiful. And then one below it, photographed by Yvette Langford of North Curry, Somerset, which came in. And that's a slightly different looking bird, but you can see it walking through a field there. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Thank you very much for that. I've just tweeted one out, actually, which we'll maybe do tomorrow, from Craig. A beautiful picture to start Monday, and it's like a heron as the sun rises, by the looks of it, just behind its head. Remarkable. But I tell you what, should we now do Mike's Meltdown? I mean, here we are, once again, at the crossroads, right? Keir Starmer accused on the front pages of the newspapers this morning of basically keeping the public in the dark. In other words, lying to the public and not giving the public the information that the public require. Because it turns out that he covered up the idea that an Iranian missile was fired at Diego Garcia, the British military base shared by the Americans that he's trying to sell off to the Chinese, effectively. You know the Chagos Island story. Keir Starmer and his mate Lord Hermer, and along with Jonathan Powell and David Lammy and a host of other Labourites who believe that we should return all property to the people who supposedly belong to it, because we have to pay reparations to people that the British Empire exploited. So we came up with this idea, this sort of ludicrous notion that Mauritius wanted to have the Chagos Islands back, despite the fact that Mauritius had never owned the Chagos Islands, despite the fact that the Chagosians didn't want to go to Mauritius and didn't want to be run by Mauritius and didn't want anything to do with Mauritius, by and large because Mauritius is quite a corrupt country. And I say that knowing friends of mine from Mauritius who tell me it's a very corrupt country. But not only were we going to give them the Chagos Islands, we were going to pay them to take them away. We were going to give them millions and millions and millions and millions of pounds. 39 million pounds, I think, altogether, to give the Chagos Islands to a country very closely tied to China, which would make the lives of the Chagosian people an absolute misery. Add to that the fact that having decided to give it away, Donald Trump said, the President of the United States of America, that it would be foolish to give such a strategic base away. Well, now the Iranians believe that Diego Garcia is so strategic that they fired missiles at it over the weekend. In fact, at 2 a.m. on Friday morning, to be precise, Tehran launches 2 rockets at Diego Garcia, right? Now, it wasn't until the following day, more than 24 hours later, at 10:30 a.m. on Saturday, the Ministry of Defence finally admitted that the attack happened because they hadn't told us. They had kept that from us. And there's 2 reasons why that's important. One, first of all, we have a duty to expect our government to tell us the truth. I know that that's difficult for them because they are a collection of liars, but we expect them to tell the truth at all times, and certainly when it comes to national security. But they decided not to tell us, and you have to ask the question, why? Why did they keep that information from the public? Why did it take the Americans to tell us? Why did it have to come out in an American newspaper, the Wall Street Journal? How is it possible that they did that? Yesterday, Kemi Badenoch said that there's a cover-up going on of a cover-up. And she wrote a piece in the Mail today in which she says, this government has a culture of cover-ups and a problem with the truth. We see it time and time again. Keir Starmer can't even answer a basic question at Prime Minister's Question Time. Did the Prime Minister speak to Peter Mandelson before appointing him as our man in Washington? You might remember that from last week. 6 separate times he was asked, did he speak to Peter Mandelson? And all he could say was the process was followed, but the process was inadequate, so that's why we're going to change the process. Well, now we hear that Morgan McSweeney, the former chief of staff in Downing Street, right, the man who got Keir Starmer into Downing Street, the man credited with making Keir Starmer an electable person from being Mr. Stiff, he actually got him into the top job in the country. They got him the Prime Minister's office. Morgan McSweeney, the man who supposedly controlled everything at the heart of Downing Street, who is now no longer there because he had to leave because he was the one that pushed for Peter Mandelson to be made ambassador to Washington, even though they all knew that he was friends, very good friends with Jeffrey Epstein, the paedophile, the convicted paedophile, even though they all knew that Peter Mandelson had actually somehow finagled his way into government once again, despite the fact that he was still talking to this man in America, despite the fact that he was still friends with him, despite the fact that there are pictures of him strolling around in a bathrobe, pictures of him strolling around in his underpants, for heaven's sake, in Paris with another woman. I mean, the story stinks to high heaven, and yet Morgan McSweeney managed to get Keir Starmer to agree to speed up the vetting process, to get Mandelson the job, and not to worry about the consequences. Well, it now turns out that the investigation into Peter Mandelson's appointment, which is a criminal one, by the way, not least because Peter Mandelson was found guilty, or found to have been, shall we say, selling secrets to Jeffrey Epstein while he was the business secretary under Gordon Brown in 2009. Because of that, there is a police investigation. They're checking all WhatsApp messages. They're checking Keir Starmer's WhatsApp messages. They're checking Morgan McSweeney's WhatsApp messages. They're checking his phone. They're checking his computer. They're checking laptops. They've taken hard drives out of Peter Mandelson's home in London and Wiltshire. But guess what? There's a bit of a fly in the ointment, because the liar's liar, Morgan McSweeney, has apparently had his phone stolen. And when he had his phone stolen, he forgot to back it up. Imagine that. He's literally the only person in the Western world who doesn't got a backup on his phone. Because as you know, if you have your phone stolen, as I did, you can get most of the information back from the iCloud. There's very, very little information that you don't get back because it doesn't disappear. Morgan McSweeney says the messages will be lost forever. It's rather convenient, isn't it? How ridiculous is that? Nobody in their right mind would believe it. Shall we have a look at Steve Reed trying to convince an LBC interviewer that actually he believes the story? Check it out.
To be doing. The Sun is reporting that Morgan McSweeney's phone has disappeared with many of his messages to Lord Mandelson on it, and no backup exists. Well, you do understand why many people will find that very convenient.
Well, as I understand it, that was a theft that was reported months before the whole Mandelson situation even began.
No backup. Prime Minister's Chief of Staff has no backup of his messages.
Well, I don't know what he does or doesn't have in terms of
doesn't seem ideal,
backups,
does it?
But his phone was stolen, and he reported it at the time, and it was well in advance of anything happening around the Mandelson situation.
I remember when Boris Johnson's phone, all the WhatsApp mysteriously disappeared on that. I remember Labour shadow ministers being pretty incredulous.
Yes, and that happened after he had been required to provide it. Morgan reported the theft of his phone months, I think it was maybe even over a year before the whole situation arose. So there's no comparison.
I mean, if you believe that, I've got some swampland in Florida to sell you, right? How ridiculous. Steve Reed, the Housing and Community Secretary, saying the reason that this is a believable story is because he reported that his phone was stolen a year before all of this kicked off about Mandelson. Well, in that case, what about his current phone? Does he have any messages on that? Or is he going to have that stolen as well? Nobody believes a bleeding word of it because they live in a web of lies. Some might say they sit on a throne of lies because this is what we have to now put up with, that everyone in politics is a liar. Monkfish says, no data is ever truly gone. It sounds more like a lie and a cover-up. Well, yeah, of course it does. Everybody knows what you do when you have your phone stolen. When you get a new phone, you plug it in, you charge it, and you download all the stuff from the iCloud so that all the messages return. And that from Margaret. So what messages are on his new phone? I mean, only this government could justify that somebody hasn't got any information because it was nicked. It literally is the dog ate my homework time, isn't it? Which is ludicrous. Nobody believes a bleeding word. This is why we have got a poll today for you to take part in. And the poll on our YouTube channel is this. Where is Morgan McSweeney's phone? Is it up Mandelson's rear end? Is it in his other coat? Is it at the bottom of the sea, like happened in the Rebecca Vardy story? Or is it in Lord Ali's penthouse, maybe? Maybe he could help him out. I've never heard anything so ridiculous. This government is now a comical government, right? They're out of the loop on international affairs. They have no idea where HMS Dragon is, so we don't even know if the one ship that we've got which is available to help out in the Middle East is going to be able to help out. We don't apparently know whether we should tell the public about anything that happens militarily around the world. So if Iran decides to fire a rocket at Diego Garcia, we just won't tell anyone. How about this? When Steve Reed was asked whether or not the Israelis were right to say that Iran could send a rocket here, because it's about the same distance as Diego Garcia, around about 4,000 kilometres, he said there's no credible evidence. Really? Timothy says, as an information security specialist, those messages could be recovered. It is also possible that the NSA in US would have them over to President Trump. Well, somebody's got them. Are you really seriously going to try and convince me that the Chief of Staff of Downing Street, one of the most highly sensitive jobs in the government, right, for which you would have to be security clearanced all the way to the top, that you would be allowed to have a phone, a burner phone, if you like, that nobody knew about? That you would be allowed to send WhatsApp messages that could not be in any way recorded. Because apart from anything else, the government have said in the Houses of Parliament that all the people who are involved in the Peter Mandelson story would have to have the necessary vetting, would have to have the necessary ability to hand over their phones and their government messages, because that's how government is done. Because ethically, that's what you're supposed to do. But this lot, no, they don't bother. How about this one? MI5 and GCHQ can access anything they want, including McStupid's phone data. You don't forget Steve Reed lied about being a solicitor. No, that wasn't him. No, it was the other guy. It was Jonathan Reynolds, wasn't it? Jonathan Reynolds lied about being a solicitor. No, this guy, Steve Reed, unfortunately, I'm afraid, was the former head of Lambeth Council, which went bankrupt. Right? Steve Reed, who sent out a diktat to councils not to give 4-day weeks to the civil servants, but let his own staff continue working 4, but being paid for 5. Yeah, I mean, if you go back through the history of Steve Reed, you'll find all sorts of terrible skeletons in his closet, mostly financial and mostly about not being very good at running the council. You know, absolutely horrendous. And this is the guy they put out to give us what our current defence status is. Just incredible. Anyway, there we are. That's my meltdown for the day. See you after this. Now, I think it's time to speak to our next guest. Orla Minahane is here from the Pink Ladies. Orla, I'm terribly sorry. I didn't realise I was ranting on quite so much there. I've come to you slightly late, but not to worry. How are you? Oh, I can't hear you. Hang on. I'm not hearing you, Orla. Just to see if we can... have you got yourself muted by any chance? Have you muted? Try that. No? Still not hearing you? It says guest has muted themselves. No? All right. I'll tell you what, I'm going to stop. I'm going to come back to you because I'm sure there's something simple to fix this. It's just I can't hear you, which obviously is a bit difficult. I've been waiting for Orla, says Sarah. Yeah, well, we'll get there. We will get there. Also coming up, we're going to speak to Alp Mehmet shortly, who is going to be talking to us about a great many things, including, of course, the terrible state of our deal with the French. Right, we've got Orla back. Shall we try again? Still says you've muted yourself. Is there something you can do about that? No? Don't know. Pooch, what do you think? Okay. Well, she says she hasn't muted herself, but we obviously can't hear her. So, shall we play the video?
Yeah.
We got a video anyway. Let's play that. This is from the Pink Ladies. So that's an event for the Pink Ladies coming up in April, of course. We'll find out later on from Alp Mehmet precisely what the deal might now be between Britain and France, because according to the papers this morning, the Times in particular, Britain faces a surge in migrant crossings over the coming weeks because a deal to fund French beach patrols is set to run out literally within days. 475 million quid is what we've given France over the last 3 years, right? And in fact, we have got the square root of nothing back. I was going to say something else there, but I'm not allowed to swear. A new package ended without an agreement on Thursday. Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, is said to be pushing for a new deal set to last until 2029. And apparently it's going to include clauses that would make funding dependent on the proportion of boats intercepted. Well, that's not the answer, is it? Because in the end, the French are not interested in stopping the boats because the French don't want the migrants there either. They stopped about a third of all attempted crossings last year, and the UK pays 2/3 of the annual cost of the French illegal migration patrols. I mean, it is totally and utterly ridiculous, isn't it? Completely mad. So we're trying to talk to Orla Minahane about that. If we can get her unmuted, that would be helpful. Should we try again, or is it too soon? Try one more time. Does it? Oh, hello. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh,
Brilliant.
sorry about that. I was just on the phone to your producer. It's everyone can see this is real time, live.
It is. I mean, listen, we have little glitches here and there. Don't worry. When we started,
I'm sorry. I don't know what it was, but anyway, never mind. We're here now. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for playing the video.
Yes, not at all. So tell us a bit about. Sorry, what's that?
Do you want to play it again?
Yeah, we can play it again. Let's play it again, and you can tell us about it.
All right. Yeah.
So, big event coming in April. Tell us about it.
So, as you know, we've done, and you've kindly spoken at one of our events in the past. So, we have a protest in on the 24th of April in Westminster at the Home Office. And the reason this is the most important protest, Mike, is because every solitary day we are seeing horrendous sexual assaults and rapes of girls and women in this country. Now, If you aren't on X and you're not on Instagram, or you're not on one of the many social media platforms, or indeed listening to someone like yourself, you don't know the extent of how bad this situation is in this country.
Yeah.
It is outrageous. The BBC, the mainstream media just simply are not covering the stories like they should be.
No.
Credit to the BBC the other day, they did do an expose on the fact that little girls, 12, 13-year-old girls, are going to mini marts and corner shops and being dragged upstairs. There was an expose on it over the weekend, but it is out of control, Mike, out of control.
Yeah.
And we simply have got to stand up to this government and say, what are you doing to help control the influx of these men that are coming in and assaulting our daughters? It's just outrageous. So if they're not going to listen to letters, and they're not going to listen to pleas on Instagram and X, and they're not going to listen to someone like Rhiannon's mum who keeps writing and keeps publicly asking Starmer to speak to her, if they're not going to listen, then we're going to have to take it to them. And I am asking every solitary person that can possibly get there to come and stand with us on the 24th. We're going to then leave the Home Office and go to Downing Street with a letter, and we're going to give that letter to Downing Street saying, you need to deal with this, government.
Yeah.
None of us want this government in power. None of us want them. They're useless. They are exposing us to the most horrific risk. But as long as they are in situ, we have to keep hounding them to try and do something about this.
Totally. And of course, we saw Steve Reed at the weekend, who's Housing and Communities Minister. I don't know what he does for a living, to be honest, but saying, don't worry about Iranian missiles coming in. We can protect our country. They can't even stop people from coming on boats, right? Yep. And of course, as I said earlier, we're going to speak to Al Mehmet coming up in the next hour about the influx of migrants, because the deal that we've got with France finishes at the end of March, right? Which means that there's going to be even more of them coming, because whatever deal there was, even though it wasn't much good, at least the French stopped some of the boats for some of the time. But here we have, what's her name? Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, saying that she's going to deport thousands of foreign criminals and failed asylum seekers before they can use human rights laws to appeal. Well, she's not, is she? Because we all know what's going to happen. Some clever lawyer is going to stand up in court and go, this is illegal. Now, apparently, the backlog now stands at over 100,000 appeals. Now, these are all people who are still living here, still in hotels, possibly in houses as well, of multiple occupancy, in areas where there are schools, where there are kids, where there are families. It's absolutely outrageous. And they've done nothing. In fact, if anything, it's got worse, isn't it?
I mean, let me give you some stats, Mike. So since Labour came in, so just shy of 2 years, although it feels like 20 years, they have let 62,000 men into this country by small boat. Now, that is not including the ones that are on lorries. That is not including the ones that have come over and just outstayed their welcome. 62,000. That is 3 times the capacity of the O2 Stadium in Greenwich. That's how many men we're talking about.
Yeah.
And when people say to me, and I get this all the time, all the names, you're a racist, you're this, you're that, the other. Let me explain something. In every week in England, just England, there are 2,000 rapes recorded. In Poland, there are 2,000 rapes per annum.
Yeah.
So we have the same amount. What is the difference between us and Poland? The fact is, Poland do not let any illegal migrant men who are unvetted into their country because they take the security and the safety of their women and children seriously, unlike they do in this country. They do not care. And it is apparent they do not care. And the fact is that there will come a point where we will have to do something to make this. She looks like a right one. I've just said something's come up saying she looks like a right-wing thug. I know I do, don't I? I do.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing is, I watch these stories and I listen to these women that come forward. Look at the rape gang inquiry. This has been going on for decades, and still nothing is being done. It's just so unfair, Mike. It is unfair. It's barbaric. It is barbaric that this is happening to us.
It is. I mean, there's a story literally every day in this country, which is generally reported more by the newspapers side than it is by the BBC. The BBC don't, as you say, go anywhere near. There was one, I think, over the weekend about a couple of migrants who were charged with or found guilty of, I can't remember either or, of raping a vulnerable woman and filming it on Brighton Beach, right?
Yeah.
And these kinds of stories happen pretty much every day, either from court reports or from people who are arrested. There was another guy who was done for, I know it's a slightly separate scenario, but up in Scotland was done for benefit fraud. Been living here 20 years on benefits, And you're kind of going, who's watching any of this stuff? Who on earth is in charge of this, right? The Shabana Mahmood is just the latest in a long line of Home Secretaries. The Tories have been just as bad, who have done nothing about it. Right?
Nothing.
And when you think about the numbers, 60,000 is bad enough, but it's closer to 200,000 since 2019 that have come here illegally and who are now still living here.
Yeah, we've got a epidemic of sexual assault and rape, and in some cases murder, as we know, because I've spoken to you about the Rhiannon White case a couple of times before. So we have an epidemic of abuse, sexual abuse on young girls and women in this country, and it's I've never thought that we would ever be in a position where we'd say this. 25 years ago, in 2000, at the millennium, there were only about 9,000 rapes reported every year. It is now gone up to over 74,000. That's the increase. It's huge. And the difference is that we have allowed this country to be completely invaded. And I don't care what anyone says. It is fact. You cannot argue with facts. That is what's happening. And the fact is, everything in this country is crumbling. We haven't got any housing. You can't get NHS appointments. You can't get, everything is out of control. And the fact is that it's happening day in and day out, and nobody is dealing with it. So there is only one solution we have to stop in order to stop the destruction of not only our female population, but in general, we have to take control of this migrant crisis. And it's not just the men, it is the fact that, I read yesterday, and again, this is not a racist comment, this is fact. 180,000 Somalian people live in this country. 85% do not work.
Yeah.
And the fact is, if they do not work, they are being subsidized by the people that do.
Yeah.
It is just unsustainable. Everything in this country is now unsustainable. And the ones that suffer are the working people, are the women and the young girls. And we're all suffering in some way or another because this government and the government before could not get control. Yeah. And they have not got control. And that is a fact. Now, you can call people like me every name under the sun, but facts speak for themselves. And the more that, the lack of control around our borders, the lack of control of who's coming in, and this absolute abuse of our welfare system has got to stop. If it doesn't, I dread to think where we're going to be.
Well, exactly right. Shall we have a look at that Robert Jenrick video? I think we've got that, haven't we? Yeah. Let's have a look at this. This is Robert Jenrick talking about that incident in Trafalgar Square the other day.
Yeah.
Appalling. Shameful. You've got a problem with Muslims. That is what the Prime Minister said about anyone who criticised the iftar event in Trafalgar Square last week. What a total hypocrite he is. The event was organised by the Ramadan Tent Project, whose CEO is Omar Salah. This is a man who associated with the extreme organisation UK Cage, whose research director once celebrated Jihadi John as a beautiful young man. Because of those comments, Keir Starmer actually pulled out of another iftar in 2021 because he didn't even want to be in the same room as him. Which raises the question, would the Prime Minister even have gone to the event in Trafalgar Square that he now says it is shameful to criticise, and his Community Secretary has been sent out to condemn anyone as racist who critiqued it? These men are total and utter hypocrites.
Now, Robert Jenrick, they're talking about the incident last week, which we talked about a lot on this show. This ridiculous event in Trafalgar Square. And with this government, right, what chance have you got of them listening to you? Because there you have what Robert said there. Anyone who criticises the iftar in Trafalgar Square is apparently a racist. And you just go, well, sorry, that's BS, frankly.
It's not Islamabad. We live in London.
Yeah.
And the last time I checked, the UK was a Christian, we're a Christian country. And what I don't understand is, I have always said I have got no issue with people practicing their religion. Religion is a personal thing. Everybody has their own views, and that is absolutely fine. I've got a cross on. I'm a Christian. That's fine. What I do not do is go into central London and ram it down people's throats.
Yeah.
That is not okay. It's intimidation. There are hundreds and hundreds of men. And where are the women? At the back.
Yeah.
Because they can't sit with them, because they treat women like second-class citizens. That is not how we operate here. That is not our MO. We don't operate like that in the UK. We fought for 100 years for equal rights for women. Yet this government are allowing mass prayer or whatever, celebration in the middle of Trafalgar Square, where women are told to sit at the back, covered up. That's not what this country is about, Mike. And I'm sorry. And with all due respect to Robert Jenrick, you know what I'm going to say? And I know I'll probably get into trouble. Robert Jenrick was a member of the government that allowed this takeover. Now, I'm sorry. And I know he's moved, and that's all very well and good. But ultimately, I am fed up with politicians now coming out going, oh, isn't it awful? Oh, there's a takeover, when they were the ones that instigated it. And I'm sorry, but that is a fact. And you know what? If we do not get a grip on the Islamic regime in this country, we will be the next Iran. And I know that everybody thinks that I'm a conspiracy theorist, but that is fact. It's exactly what happened in the 70s in Iran. And we are watching it in real time happen in this country.
Yeah, and the arguments around all of that are that, many people will say, not all Islamic people want to take over the country, but there are people who are in the Islamic community who do want to take over the country. And that's all you need to know. You don't need to know how many of them there are. John Terry was talking about it the weekend. He went down to Whitechapel and saw that the underground station there has got a sign in Urdu. And again, as you say, we're not living in Islamabad. Why do we have to have a sign in Urdu? You wouldn't put a sign in French or a sign in Spanish. There's plenty of Spanish and French people living here, but you don't put French and Spanish on the underground.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you want to, this is the most simple scenario. If I choose to go to live in Hong Kong, or I choose to go and live in Dubai, I go there knowing full well what their culture is, what their expectations are, how I should behave, and that is my choice. So why do you leave the places that you say you want to leave because you want to come for a better life, and then make the country you're moving to the same hellhole as the place you've left?
Yeah.
I don't understand it. We have to get a grip on the fact that this is the UK. We have a royal family. Okay, I should use that loosely, but we have a monarchy. We have Christian values. We have traditions. This is England. This is the United Kingdom. It is not the Middle East. And if you want halal and you want, mosques and you want all of these things, then go back to the place that you think is so fantastic. Again, that is not race. That is not racist. That is fact. If you're going to come here, you respect the country that you live in, you pay your way, you do not ponce off us and the government, and then tell everyone how much you hate us. I mean, I do wonder to myself sometimes, am I living in a parallel universe? Because it seems that there are so many people that think that we're outrageous, to think that it's not okay to ram your culture and your religion and your way of thinking down our throats. And then not only that, but then think it's okay to then go and abuse our young girls because you think they're disgusting. It's just not okay. It's not okay. And, here's you talking about ranting before, and here's me ranting, but everybody seems to be ranting at the moment because everybody is so fed up.
Yeah, because we want them to do something about it, which they're not doing. It's as simple as that, really. Tell us when the event is again. It's April the 24th, is it?
So it's April the 24th, and it's at 12 o'clock outside the Home Office. And what I just want to appeal to everybody and say, if you can possibly be there, please be there. If your daughter or your niece or your granddaughter or your son, in some cases, if your children mean that much to you, you have got to stand beside us. and go and give a message to this government and to the Home Office and say, we cannot tolerate this and we will not tolerate this anymore. So please come. There'll be guest speakers. It's only for a couple of hours. Then we're going to go to Downing Street. Rhiannon White's mum, Siobhan, and her 3 sisters are going to be delivering a letter to Downing Street to say to Starmer again, why are you ignoring us? Why are you not listening to us? Why do you have a Cobra meeting about everything, but you will not have a Cobra meeting about the fact that our daughters have been murdered on the street? So if you can please come there. April the 24th, someone's just written 4th, April the 24th. That would
don't
be
get
amazing.
on the 4th, Simon, or else there won't be anything happening. It's the 24th. Right.
Yeah.
Orla, listen, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. We'll speak to Rhiannon White's mum as well, because I think it's absolutely shameful that Starmer hasn't even bothered to go and see her, that she's only had one letter from some minion at the bleeding Home Office. But anyway.
Thank you.
Orla, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Orla Minahane there. Big Pink Ladies event coming up on the 24th of April down outside the Home Office. It'd be a good thing to go to. Now, coming up, Alp Mehmet's going to be here. We've got to talk to him about more problems with the migrant crisis, because we learned from the Times this morning that the 3-year, £475 million deal for the French to stop the migrants coming is running out at the end of March. So literally a week from now, there will need to be a new deal. We haven't got one yet. Meanwhile, Shabana Mahmood's talking about sending migrants home without a right to appeal. Well, that's not going to happen, is it? We'll come up and speak to Alp very shortly. But first, I wonder, Pooch, should we do an early Pooch's Pooch? Yeah, should we do a bit of that? Because we need a bit of cheering up. And this is one of the great videos you've ever seen of a dog. We had one last week doing some exercise with his dad. Have a look at this one. This is amazing. You got the Pooch's Pooch. Yeah. You do it at the end. Amazing. Brilliant. Fantastic. Oh.
Could watch that again.
We could watch that again. But we're waiting for Alp Mehmet. Alp, do you want to come and join us? Because
should we play news quickly?
Yeah, let's there's some news, with Edward Hughes. Go ahead.
Thanks, MG. Let's get this week started. I'm Edward Hughes, and this is your news. Good morning. The UK is closely monitoring the escalating war with Iran, now in its 4th week, as oil prices surge and threaten household bills. Huge weapon Keir Starmer will chair a Cobra meeting this morning to discuss the conflict's impact on the cost of living, with British Gas warning that further energy price rises are inescapable if crude stays high. A UK minister has stated there's no evidence Iran has the capability or intent to strike Britain directly. In other news, an arson attack on Jewish volunteer ambulances in North London is being treated as an anti-Semitic hate crime. Health Secretary Wes, Mandy's mate. Streeting has praised the response to a meningitis outbreak in Kent, where confirmed cases have dropped to 20. Sport, Manchester City lifted the Carabao Cup after defeating Arsenal at Wembley. There goes the quadruple. That's the UK headlines. Please remember to like and subscribe. Latest Tigers.
Edward Hughes there with the news. His namesake, or his reverse namesake, Hugh Edwards, on the front page of the Mail today. Incredibly, apparently unhappy with Channel 5. That drama goes out tonight on his downfall, his dramatic downfall from the BBC. He's actually having a go at them, saying that they didn't consult him. They didn't check that the sources they were getting were factual enough. I mean, just ridiculous. I don't know. Self-pitying and deluded is what they call him. Quite right too. But let's talk to Alp Mehmet, who's here now from Migration Watch. Alp, very good morning to you.
Good morning,
Good
Mike.
to see you. Once again, the story that we can't get away from, despite the fact of World War III in the Middle East. We've still got to think about migrants. Front page of the Times. Migrants begin their attempt to cross from Gravelines yesterday. I mean, look, there's more and more of them coming on these dinghies. There must be a good 80 or 90 people on there. We're told the 3-year, £475 million deal with France is ending at the end of the month, and we haven't got a new deal.
Do you know, Mike, I'm in many respects glad that we haven't, and yes. I'm not sure that it's worth another 475, no doubt 500 million quid for the next 3 years for nothing to happen. And I know that the French say we've stopped 40,000 and the Home Office claims that it's working. How many of those 40,000 didn't go back and jump on the next service
because it's a
into
loop,
Dover.
isn't it?
Yeah,
that's the thing.
It's absurd.
Also, the picture that's on the front of the Times, which you can see there, I'll hold it up. That is, you got it there, but you can also see it if I hold it up that way. Is as big a boat as you've ever seen coming, and that's from yesterday. So the idea that we're going to say in any way, shape or form that we're getting on top of this problem, we're not, are we?
No, certainly not. And that's interesting, actually, because the boats have got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right.
However big they are, they're still overloaded.
Yes.
So all we're doing, really, is, in a way, chancing the lives, not us, but the smugglers and the people themselves are really risking their lives in more and more numbers.
Yes.
Nevertheless, it's their choice. This is not something that we're making them do. I really, how many more times can we say that until there is some sort of deterrence in place, until we can show to them that if you arrive this way, you're not going to stay, you're going to go back, then I'm afraid they'll continue coming, and the number is limitless.
Right.
More and more, there are hundreds of thousands around the world who will be jumping onto a plane or wherever, getting onto the continent, and then making their way to the northwest of France to get in a dinghy to come here.
From where they will meet people like this guy who's on the front page of the Daily Express today, who's a Romanian criminal, who's one of the smugglers, right? His name is Inuita Gria, was among a group of illegal migrants who came here with his help, right? He's a violent Romanian criminal who's been handed a restraining order for threatening to kill children, but he's now here in this country, and he's an expert in human trafficking, right? So he's kind of at this end of it, I suppose, sort of masterminding what happens to the people once they get here. And we don't even know how many people like him are living in this country of ours.
We don't know. We don't know how many crooks, how many murderers, how many rapists, child molesters, paedophiles. We haven't got a clue, because they arrive, they haven't got any documents, and they say, my name is, and I'm so many years old, and that I'm a good guy and I want to come here because I'm escaping persecution. All right, we say. If we say no, they appeal, go to the courts, and the courts say, don't worry.
There was a guy at the weekend from Cameroon who apparently was given the right to remain because he said he was gay, he couldn't go back to his country. He's got a wife and kids living in Cameroon. So the next thing that will happen is we'll get them to come and live with him now that he's here, presumably.
Well, that's what happens with, 70, 80% of those crossing are young men.
Yes.
All of them who get to stay, and the majority will bring their families, will bring their children, wives, and dependents, like parents and uncles and Lord knows what.
Right.
And that is simply, it's just cocking a snoot to the British people, to the British public, to the taxpayers.
Yeah.
We're
because
mad.
The cost of this is billions, and it's going up every single year. I mean, there's a story in the Telegraph this morning, which I've got on screen here. Shabana Mahmood will deport thousands of foreign criminals and failed asylum seekers before they can use human rights laws to appeal and block their removal. Well, I just don't believe it. Because they say this all the time. Well, we're going to crack down on it. We're going to absolutely change the way that this happens. They're not going to have so many chances at appealing. You know what's going to happen. There'll be some human rights lawyer who'll get stuck in and go, sorry, you can't remove them. And then they'll be stuck here for the rest of time.
This is all pretend action. It's been going on for years. And to be fair, it was going on with the previous government as well. Because what you do, as you know, as a journalist, you will get briefings from officials, usually, or special advisors, more likely nowadays. And they will say, look, and they will pass on, they will convey the line that the journalist ought to take.
Yes.
And every time, a lot of journalists just fall for it, hook, line and sinker.
Right.
You're absolutely right. I don't. When I looked at this closely, this proposal, I wonder what it is that they're actually talking about. Is it people who are coming here as ordinary migrants, are treated as such, who don't qualify and are being returned back, and they're calling that deportations? It's nothing of the sort. How many of those who've come here illegally, made their way here illegally, and not been given permission to stay, not been granted asylum, or whatever humanitarian.
Or they come here and they're in the process of applying for asylum, right?
How many of them have gone back? We seldom hear that. Well, exactly.
I mean, we talk about this one in, one out nonsense, right? Which, of course, is nothing like one in, one out. You know, it's another part of that Labour kind of lexicon of BS, where they go, if you call it something, people will think it's true. Well, it's not, because it's clearly not one in, one out. The situation there is that we send people back, but then they send us somebody else in replacement for them. So actually the result is we take more people in, and I think the number has gone up, than we send away.
Yeah, but it's gone up, but it's a fraction. It's tiny when you compare it to the numbers who've actually come in. What, 60?
No, that's what I'm saying. No, the numbers coming in are bigger than the numbers going out, because not only are the ones going out being replaced, but there's even more people coming.
But Mike, we're talking about hundreds.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about a few hundred. The numbers. And I thought you meant those who have gone back as part of the scheme.
God, no, that's not working at all.
That's not working at all, and we're paying for it. We're paying through the nose.
Yes.
My feeling has always been that particular agreement was more to do with us cozying up to the French and cozying up to the EU than it had anything to do with.
And now that we're cozying up even more to the EU, what are the chances that we get a more robust deal with the French? We won't, because Starmer's too busy trying to suck up to the French and Brussels because he wants to have closer alignment with the European Union. And also the French don't want to stop people leaving France to come to Britain, because they don't want them either.
We've given the French something like £750 million. Pounds over the last 10, 12 years.
Yes.
I mean, that is just a joke, really.
And what have we got for that?
Exactly.
And what have we got for it? Not much. I mean, according to this piece, it says that the French stopped just over a third of all attempted crossings last year. Well, they may well have done, but as you say, that doesn't mean to say that the people trying to cross didn't then succeed the next time they went. According to this piece in the Telegraph, we've now got a backlog of more than 100,000 people who are appealing against being rejected as asylum seekers. So there's already 100,000 people plus who they're not deporting. So what are we going to do with the ones that they are deporting?
And I take you back to the election campaign in 2024 and leading up to it. We're going to smash the gangs and we're also going to get rid of the backlog.
Yes.
And they laid into the Tories for allowing the backlog to grow.
Right.
Well, frankly, I would argue that their huge failure, time and time again, actually encourages more people to come. And that is inexcusable. I think that the government should be honest enough to say, look, we've lost control. We haven't got a clue how to deal with this problem.
Our policy has failed miserably.
That's all there is to it. You are going to pay for all those who want to come here. And let's not forget that there are people in this country who actually want anyone who has a desire, who wants to come to this country, to be able to do so.
Yes.
That is simply wrong. We're a nation state. We've got borders. We're a sovereign nation.
Right. We're also one of the most densely populated countries in the world, and I think the most densely populated in Europe. So when people say on television programmes things like, oh, we should take our fair share, the French take far more than we do. Well, yeah, France is a much bigger country with a smaller population per square foot than we have, right?
If the French choose to take more, that's for them, but there's no reason why we should, as a result, be having to take more as well.
No.
I mean, and that is part of the problem, of course, that the EU has little control about the numbers who are going in and staying on or making their way to other countries. What they should be doing is stopping them at their borders, not allowing them to move freely, which is what the Schengen arrangement actually does. Once you're in the EU, you're able to move around freely in 27,
and many of the people who
countries.
come here to seek asylum have already had it refused in several European countries. And so, surely we should have the wherewithal or the ability to say, sorry, given Schengen, if you've been, passed over for asylum in another country in Europe, then you can't come to Britain and apply in Britain, because we would consider ourselves to be the same as the countries that have rejected you. So get lost.
Well, we were never part of Schengen.
No, I know that. But nevertheless, we were part of the EU.
We were part of the EU, and the argument now is that as a result of leaving, that we've laid ourselves open to not being able to send them back.
Yeah.
In fact, as you've heard lots of times from people like me, Tony Smith.
Yeah.
It never worked anyway. You were talking about a small number of people, and it took months and months to actually make any arrangements.
Yeah.
So, that arrangement, Dublin and all that, it just didn't work.
But is it part of the problem? And this was illustrated, actually. We haven't got the clip because they don't let us use their clips from BBC Question Time, so we just stuck 2 fingers up to them. There was a woman on Question Time, believe it or not, a comedian, supposedly, who came out and said, the thing is, the system is really biased against all of the really skilled people that are coming over on the small boats, doctors, scientists, professors. And you're kind of going, have you completely lost the plot?
I think a Labour politician, actually, wasn't it?
No, I think she was a comedian. She was meant to be a comedian.
Perhaps she was both.
Well, she may have been both, yeah. Because not very good at either thing. But there is this kind of level of society, and they all clapped her, by the way. They all thought she was right. This level of society that thinks that those of us who criticise the immigration policy in this country are sort of Neanderthal racists, and that we don't like people because they're brown. Absolute rubbish. You're originally Turkish, right? Which is
Turkish
Cypriot, as far as I know, is a separate kind of ethnicity to me. I don't take a view of you because of what your ethnicity is or where you come from. I do take a view against people who want to come here illegally, who we don't bleeding well know. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I came 70 years ago this year as a kid.
Right.
I'm now nearer 80 than 75. And the fact is that, all those who argue that we need all these young people, we need these hard workers, what we're actually doing is importing a lot of low-skill, low-wage people
moped riders
who are costing the taxpayer huge amounts. If you take the lifetime cost, you're talking about billions and billions of pounds of cost to the taxpayer of those who are coming here and not really contributing anything, if anything, taking away. And that really is something that is quite often overlooked. The lifetime cost of accepting so many of these people. And that is simply unfair. The British public have never been asked if they want to do this.
No.
They've never been asked whether they want to pay for it, but they're made to pay for it. I think that's a disgrace, really, that all our governments should be ashamed of.
Absolutely right. Let me play you this. This is even more ridiculous, right? And this is a BBC drama that's upcoming. Pooch, I think we've got this one, on investigations going on into migrant sort of doings, if you like. And this is a clip. I'm not quite sure when it comes out. This is a clip from a show in which they basically try and make out that journalists trying to find out what's going on inside the Home Office and elsewhere are actually extremists. Check this out. Turn the car around. So they're all driving around, horrified looks on their faces because there's a guy who they're portraying as a kind of citizen journalist, as some kind of mad extremist who basically says the reason that he's doing what he's doing is that in history, in sort of schools of the country, you're taught that the biggest land invasion that happened in history of the UK was the Normans landing in 1066. He says, no, actually it was yesterday morning when 40 undocumented men arrived on our shores and continue to do so every bleeding day. But the BBC seek to make him look like the villain.
I think we call that gaslighting.
I think we do. I think we absolutely do.
And this is not just the BBC, but a lot of others as well, who are putting in place the narrative that it's all about right-wingery, it's all about right-wing extremists.
Yes. It's all our fault, apparently.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
It's not their fault.
Especially me. The fact is that when you look at extremism, really, if you're honest, genuinely honest, and you want to do something about it, you don't present some clean-faced, short haircut, blue-eyed, blonde kid wearing a white shirt who is claiming to be patriotic as some sort of extremist. And yet this is exactly when a few years ago now, so not even recently, when I sat there with some other governors of schools, that was the film that we were shown as to how we should be aware and look out for extremism.
Yes.
nothing about Islamic extremism.
No, of course not.
Absolutely nothing, which was even then sort of very much a problem that schools were facing when young girls were suddenly disappearing and going back to wherever to be married off. As kids, really, I just don't understand. I find it difficult to grasp how so-called liberals, people who are concerned about your rights, my rights, young kids' minds, can actually go along with this sort of extreme nonsense.
I know, it is nonsense as well. And also this morning we're looking at a story which is still developing as we speak, about an arson attack that took place overnight. 4 ambulances belonging to a Jewish volunteer service called Hatzalah in Golders Green in North London. Huge explosion, 4 ambulances destroyed by fire. Ministers calling the attack sickening. Chief Rabbi said it's an assault on British Jews and wider society. Keir Starmer has condemned it, a deeply shocking anti-Semitic arson attack, he calls it. My thoughts are with the Jewish community. But the Jewish community have got more than thoughts to worry about, Prime Minister, and they want to know that you're going to keep them safe. That's the problem.
And yet the Prime Minister says it's great to go along with what happened in Trafalgar Square last week. I think that really
it's a mixed
shameful.
signal, isn't it? It's a mixed signal. And he says anyone who criticises it is a racist, which is also wrong. But Al, listen, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. Migration Watch. The migration story doesn't change. It changes only for the worse, if anything. But we'll keep you abreast of all of it. Of course, one here from Meow Moog, I think she says what everybody's thinking. I would rather stick pins in my eyes than watch anything on the BBC. The last thing I watched was Clarkson's Top Gear back in the day. Yeah, before he got fired for being an extremist, presumably. That was the Mike Graham Show for today. It's 9:33. Thank you very much indeed to all of you for watching, for all of your messages. A very lively chat this morning. Thank you. Do keep it clean, though, because otherwise we'll be removing you if you say terrible things or rude things. We have freedom of speech here, but we ask you to keep it civil. Same goes for the Substack as well. If you ask questions of the Ask Mike section, keep those clean too. You know, it makes sense. There's no reason not to be polite. You can have differing opinions, but you need to be polite. And of course, don't forget, what you need to do is go over to subscribe to UK Live, youtube.com/@UK Live Online. That's going to be the new channel we're going to be launching very shortly. Never mind the nonsense is what we call it. Go over there, subscribe to it, and we'll be putting things on there from time to time that you can see as part of our new exploration into the wider world of TV media. Thanks to Pooch, thanks to Charlotte, thanks to all of you, thanks to all the guests as well. We'll see you tomorrow at 7.
Remember, despite all of the others out there, it's always the others. Don't be a plank.